both feel we're living worlds apart. It's fucked now, we lost in limbo. Remembering what you said though, when I asked you if we'd make it far. That one last kiss that they write about, my one last wish you could never doubt. I trust angels who fly away from you, and you told me that we'd never die. Gave me so many reasons why we were meant to be. Then she said no, 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 no. No, 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 you should. I've earned the cost and now I've paid it. Oh, no, no, no. Oh, please don't go. I know my face a memory erasing. Been a few years since I heard your voice, yeah. Lost a few here, but it's not by choice, no. Girl, I see your face every day when I look through my phone. Can't delete all these memories, won't leave me alone. Hit my blind side, never saw you coming. You were so wild, but no, I was nothing. And I'm nothing now, nothing's changed. You know I'm just the same. Miss you now, but I hope that someday you explain. That one last kiss that they write about, my one last wish you could never doubt. I trust angels who fly away from you, and you told me that we'd never die. Gave me so many reasons why we were meant to be. Then she said,
Good morning, good afternoon now, actually, where I am. 12:01 in the afternoon, noon, on June 22nd, 2023. We are getting some new information on the Titan submarine. They had just tweeted out a few moments ago the USC G Northwest, a debris field was discovered within the search area and ROV near the Titanic. Experts within the Unified Commands are evaluating the information. So what they are saying, that is not anything good. It sounds like they have found new wreckage of the debris of the Titan. Debris isn't as bad as debris. Yeah. So that's what we got. I'm trying to look on Twitter here. I've got a lot I can share with you. You know, a lot of people, you know, there's going to be a lot of blame to pass around here in the days leading up to what happened. But I'm just trying to see 900 miles off the coast. I've got a lot. I'm just trying to see if there's any. You know, there's a lot of jokes being made, and I'll be honest with you, I don't find it funny. I think it's really too soon. For me, they have a look at a breeze. It will now be evaluated if it matches the submarine. Let's see here. Give me one second. You know, they say, let's see, that's another. See, they're all jokes. They're all freaking jokes, and it's just not cool. I'll show you the ones that are in a moment. Okay, I can't find anything. Yeah, I don't think it's funny, to be quite honest with you. I mean, I understand that sometimes you have to laugh your way through, but it's just not. I don't find it funny whenever we still don't, know. But there is going to be a press briefing at 3 p.m. Eastern. Just broke jealous losers joking. Yeah, I don't think it's a joking situation. Let me pull up some different stuff here. Victor 7. Here, let me exit out of this. Got a bunch of different stuff to show y'all. Thought we would cover some true crime as well, maybe if we get time. This is the Victor 6000 ROV. So this is what's been searching the sea floor for the Titan. It is a French research vessel that can reach depths of 20,000 feet. That is unheard of. I would like the word field in that. I don't like the word field in that. Yeah. Yeah. I was watching on the news, and they said, obviously there's a lot of sediment and things down at the bottom, and anything that's newly down there, it's not going to have much sediment on it. So 20,000 feet is just insane. This is so sad. I can't believe people can be so insensitive. It's, I mean, I get it. I get it. They're billionaires, and the world, this is the news right now. This is what everyone is, been searching for. And I get it. There was a boat with 700 people that sunk, and the news didn't cover that, and that's 700 lives. I get it. But I think also that this is because of the Titanic. It brings a lot of fascination to our minds, and so, and I also think, we try to put ourselves in that situation of being stuck in this vessel, and being at the bottom of the sea floor and just praying someone would, you kind of put yourself in that situation. I don't think they should be let to be go back down there. It's interesting you said that, because actually, um, I have a lot of stuff I'm going to show you guys here in a moment, but um, they remember they thought there was knocking, which there could have been knocking, and then it could have imploded. We just don't know. There's a lot of things, again, that makes sounds at the bottom of the sea floor. Give me 1 second. I was trying to find that thingy majigger. So in the 80s, okay, here it is. Turn this into HLN. Give me the person who found I think that one's it. Let me see if that one's it. Okay, no, that one's still not it. So I'll just read it to you. When Ballard found the Titanic in 1985, people asked him, what should we do with it? You know, when we first found the Titanic. And he replied, nothing should be done with it. It's a grave. Instead, for 20 years, we've looted it for souvenirs for rich people. You know, only the rich can go, you know, I'm not knocking it or anything, but I'm just saying it's only really rich people that can go down there and then have something, you know. It's a mass grave, not a tourist attraction, and it's about time we treat it as one. The gal said. So, you know, that was his opinion. He was the one who found, you know, the Titanic, and it is essentially a graveyard for a lot of people, even though they're essentially not there anymore. But I don't know, it's really weird. All right, so let me show you a couple more things we'll get into in just a second. We've got to wait till 3 o'clock before a press conference. This was it. This was the tweet I was trying to show y'all. You know, and like seriously, where this boot is, there'll be like 2 boots laying beside each other. That was where a body laid. That is literally where a body laid. And then, you know, the salt and time and the bacteria obviously will decay you completely to nothing. But I do agree. I think this is going to start a conversation. Should we just leave the Titanic alone? You know, it's so deep. It's in a very, very deep part of the Atlantic, right? The bodies dissolve fast, I heard, under that amount of time and pressure. Absolutely. Very, very quickly, yes. Yeah. Very, very quickly. So make sure I'm not getting any information here. All right. So it's going to be interesting to see what, you know, pops up at 3 o'clock. We'll look at this.
Anything about it, there's very little information on the website. I didn't know at that point that you drive the thing with an Xbox game controller.
So this is, I saw this, I watched this a long time ago when he went down to the bottom of the seafloor. This is, I saw it on Sunday, CBS Sunday Morning. And he's going to kind of talk about, was that your doorbell or mine? That was my phone.
I didn't know that the ballast was, you know, used construction pipes.
Can y'all hear that? I saw the Xbox controller, yeah. Could y'all hear that? Let me know. Okay, perfect. Let me just make sure.
And then you get the tour, and Stockton Rush, the designer of the sub, the CEO, explains to you that all of this stuff, the lights and the handles and the propellers, these are off-the-shelf parts because, well, not only are they inexpensive, but they're tried and true. They're mass-produced. The part we care about is the pressure vessel, the capsule where the people are. And that he designed with NASA and the University of Washington. And that, he says, is as locked down as it gets. His exact words were, everything else can fail, the lights can go out, the propellers can stop, but you will still be alive. Once I was in the sub with Stockton.
Now, it appears that something did go out in that instance, and it may have imploded even still. The ocean takes what it wants, and it releases its secrets when it wants as well.
And the scientists and the crews outside doing what they had rehearsed over and over, I felt okay. I felt excited. I felt like they wouldn't do this if it was really dangerous.
You steer the ship with a controller, with a joystick from a gaming system, a home gaming system. And that's not a bad thing. That's a great thing, that how very simple this submarine is and how easy it is to navigate. It was simplicity all the way through it, simplicity and an elegance to it.
Yeah, you are bolted in from the outside. There are 18 bolts in a circle around the hatch. And by the way, they only fasten 17 of them.
Yeah, so they fasten 17 of the 18 bolts. I'd be like, can we get the 18th for good measure? I'm just saying. I'm telling you. Might as well.
The 18th one is way up high, and they say there's really no mathematical difference. So you're right. The really nightmarish scenario is that they are alive at the surface, bobbing away, running out of air, and unable to get out.
There's special training just to learn how to get into an escape suit, in and out of that. It's a very tough thing to get into these kind of warm weather coveralls that will float you if you have to bail from a ship or escape from a submarine. Beyond that, no real training. When we went down, it was just, there were communication problems on every trip I've taken. Of the 4 separate dives I'd taken with OceanGate, every time there was a problem with, at least, sporadically communicating with the surface. And again, I don't think that's their fault as much as just that's the nature of the beast. When you're going 1,000 feet or 13,000 feet underwater, you're going to lose contact for a while.
It's tragic, and I deeply feel for the families and the kids of these men. But I have to say, it comes with the life of a risk taker.
That it does. That it really does. Whenever you do anything like that, I've never heard, what is it? Crystal says, I've never heard what the first time the sub tried to make it the trip up to the Titanic around the ocean. Was this the first time the sub tried to make it? No, they've done multiple trips to the Titanic. It was, yes, it is $250,000 US dollars in order to do this. But to be honest with you, it is from get-go, to be honest with you. I mean, you should never say never, and there should always be hope until there's not. But it would have taken an true act of God.
Mission leader and founder of RMS Titanic Inc. All right, so G, people that are trapped on this thing?
Yes, unconfirmed reports that there are 3 people on there out of the 5 that one of them used to be one of my sub-pilots, and it's just a sad day for our industry.
I'm so sorry to hear that. The oxygen situation, is there any way to remedy that?
No, we carry O2 bottles with us in the submersible, and you also have CO2 scrubbers, and the O2 will last longer than your CO2 scrubbers, and if those CO2 scrubbers go, and depending on what actually happened at depth, just not feeling good about it.
All right. What's this thing like to be inside of, and what exactly are you doing when you're going down to the Titanic wreck site?
Well, when we deploy, it's usually a 2.5-hour drop down to the wreck site itself. We go down 3,980 meters, and we spiral down a corkscrew action about 3 degrees per second to land right basically in front of the bow of Titanic. Once we get down there, then we begin our grid searches and our research on, you know, the decay and everything that's going on with Titanic.
What could possibly have happened?
Worst situation is, you know, something happened to the hull, and our fear is that, you know, it imploded at around 3,200 meters.
And is there anything that the U.S. Navy can do right now?
No. I mean, I don't see anything that can happen at this point. I mean, I'm trying to be, you know, somewhat cautious and, you know, don't want to basically be the naysayer of what's going on. But when you're talking 6,000 pounds per square inch, it is a dangerous environment. More people have been to outer space than to this depth of the ocean.
Think about that. We know more. We have Mars and the moon mapped more than we do our ocean. Like only 15% of the ocean is mapped. Think of that. That is insanity. That's insanity. Oh crap, I just knocked that thing. Celebrating Stacy, thank you so much for celebrating 10 months of membership. You are awesome, and I appreciate your support. Thank you so much.
And when you're diving in these situations, you have to cross your T's, dot your I's. You have to do everything absolutely perfect and by the book. And, you know, throw in a bunch of tourists in a new sub that, you know, was just created over the last several years. It's not looking good, Jesse.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us in this tender time, and we're going to be praying for everybody on that sub. G. Michael Harris is.
Hold on one second. So I did me and my husband, we did one of those scooter-like things that it's like a bubble that goes over your head, and then they take you out in the ocean, and it's like a moped. I don't know what it is, like a moped thingy. And it's got an oxygen tank in the front. That was like one of the funnest experiences of my life. But you don't go deep at all, like at all. So we did that in, I think it was the Bahamas or somewhere in the Caribbean. I remember it was in the Caribbean somewhere. You don't like elevators. Okay. Now, let's see if there's anything new with
lost the thruster. Maybe they lost both thrusters. And with it imploding sometime after its impact with the seabed, is that there would have been a report of a sound event, which is code for a big bang. And they've been dropping sonobuoys. I mean, ever since they got out there, that the airplanes who were out there within hours of being called have been dropping sonobuoys in the vicinity. I think literally on our screen, right. I think if it had imploded sometime after impact with the seabed, that sound event would have been recorded by one of those sonobuoys. So while it's possible, I don't think it's probable.
Understood. If you're just joining us, welcome to WFLA Now. Mark Martin, retired U.S. Navy submariner. We were reacting to this news from the U.S. Coast
Oh
Guard.
no,
We
let
were
me pause it.
anticipating an announcement of a press conference as early as 1 o'clock because that's what we have had in previous days. Instead,
Let me
we get
pause it 1 second.
a tweet that changes the trajectory of this.
Okay, hold on 1 second. I see. Will it outrun a shark? No, it will not outrun a shark. Actually, I probably have I can find a picture of it. Here it is. This is not me on it, but it's really fun. But there is a rope with like a floater so they can see you on top the boat where they can see you wherever you're going. When I went on mine, I was talking to ICU about it. When I went on mine, I looked down because there's an oxygen gauge like right in front of you, and it's constantly telling your oxygen. And my oxygen was low when I first got down there, and there's divers down there like, constantly making sure you're okay. They're constantly making sure you're okay. And I was mopeding my ass on this thing, trying to find the diver because my oxygen was low, and it's sheer panic. And that's, I can't imagine being, 12,000 feet at the bottom of the fucking ocean. And I'm like, going around the ocean, and there is, as you can see here, there's fish everywhere. Big fish, small fish, and everything in between. And I'm like, trying to get it, but they got me back up. And they changed my oxygen tank, and then they put me back down in it. But that was so fun. Something just dinged on my end, so yes, there has been appears a new debris field in the area of where the Titanic is. Mods, can you tell me, was someone celebrating their membership or something? Oh my goodness, there's Sandy. There we go. Celebrating 14 months. Thank you so much for your support. That is amazing, and I appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah, so, when your oxygen's getting low and you're down there and you're mopeding all around the ocean, it's quite scary. I had no idea such a thing. It looks so fun. It's one of the most fun experiences I've ever had in my entire life. That, and when I was in Niagara Falls, Canada area, we went on this river, and it's, I guess, the Niagara Falls area, and you do like this speedboat, but it's got a lot of people on it, and they hit the waves, and the waves come hitting you like huge waves, and it hit you're soaked, and these waves hurt. It hits you so hard, but it's fun. It's so fun. It reminds me of something SpongeBob. Yeah. And that it's a bubble, literally, and you can move your head around it, and there's nothing. It's just air constantly being pumped in, and like you could literally stick, you don't do this, but you could stick your head almost out of it, and you would have been in the water, but you wouldn't want to do that because you would drown. But you can. It's just a bubble that's holding you there. Yeah, it's really fun. I recommend if you've ever done anything or consider doing it. I think we did it maybe on a cruise. I can't really remember. We'll go, just give me 1 second. I'm gonna pop up something here. I got so many windows pulled up right now. But yeah, that is, if you're ever like on a cruise or anything, I recommend, doing something like that. Okay, that's that. All right. Let me pop up this. Here we go.
For a couple who purchased an expedition after he canceled repeatedly. I'm also still reviewing documents on another lawsuit the company's had for a previous employee who says that the submersible that he was working on was not safe for the depths that it operates at, and that in turn he says he was fired. On this one, we'll focus on the fraud. Around November 28, 2016, Mark and Sharon Hagel said they signed a contract with OceanGate to participate in a trip to view the Titanic wreckage, each paying a deposit of around $10,000 for the trip in June of 2018. According to the Hagels, the contract they signed included 2 additional payments. One was a $40,000 payment that was supposed to be paid after the first dive of Cyclops 2, which was expected to be in October 2017. The second, $55,129 payment, was due about 4 months before the estimated date of their trip. Midway through 2017, the Hagels did not receive any updates from Rush and suspected Cyclops 2 was not going to be ready for its first dive, so they considered a refund. In September 2017, Rush traveled to the Hagels' homes to convince them to keep investing in the trip. According to the Hagels, Rush went into more detail about the plan.
So that was kind of interesting. No company, I guess is perfect in, there's always going to be kind of unhappy customers sometimes, but it sounds like there was some real, here's a good, well, it's not a good one, but it shows you what something would look like that implodes, like a submarine.
What a submarine implosion would look like. This is an example of what the submarine would look like when it implodes.
Isn't that crazy? That is literally insane. And it is 12,500 pounds per square inch. You're more or less going to be liquefied, instantaneous, which, honestly, if you're going to go, that's the best way to go. I would rather go instantaneous like that than be sitting at the bottom, not knowing, knowing that there's no way they're going to get me. Like it could, yeah, that's exactly what it's like. Yeah. This is how they, I guess, test out to see how it works. I would rather go instantaneous. Here, a little check on the JB stream here. See what
Lost the thruster. Maybe they lost both thrusters.
Sent.
I would expect so, because the ROV search area would have been quite small. 3 by 3, maybe 5 by 5 nautical miles at the biggest. So relatively small search area. They knew where the vessel submerged They know where the Titanic is. They're going to do the geometry. They're going to, figure out where to look. And they got in there and looked and lo and behold, there's debris within the search area. So they're looking in the right place. What the condition of the Titan is, we have no idea. Again, there's several scenarios.
No, this is not the debris, Debbie. This is just, this is live for them, but for those that are just joining us, it is the debris field that they have found newly, and it's going to be 2.5 hours before we get the update that read what I told you about the vacuum. The vacuum created the implosion. It could have. That's something that could have taken place. Or the system could have failed from the get-go. One of the thrusters could have went out, and you got to descend very slowly because of the pressure. And if they went down faster than they should have, then that could have imploded them from the get-go. Hey, Jessica, thank you, honey. Appreciate it. The last bolt wasn't tightened. Yeah, they said they didn't have to tighten it. Said it didn't make a mathematical difference. 5 men in a cylinder. All the panic mode, the oxygen went long ago. You think so? It's going, and that is true. OceanGate was not, it's a private entity. They could do more or less what they wanted to do in that.
As we've discussed, maybe some external components detach themselves for whatever reason from the hull on the way down, and that's why they were trying to release ballast, and that's why
as a result of either encoding problems or just an increased volume in traffic online. So
apparently it's working in Scotland. TikTok is working in Scotland.
Hello, TikTok.
Just because a friend's kids just saw me on TikTok in Scotland. So
with retired U.S. Navy submariner Mark Martin. Mark, I want to ask you this. How obvious would it be to the Horizon Arctic's ROV that this debris belonged to the Titan sub? And what I mean by that is, again, there's this isn't, there's wreckage down there from the Titanic. There's going to be debris down there for the Titanic. How obvious would it be something where the ROV would come across it and notice it right away and say, this stands out as debris that is distinct and different? And also, too, yes. Could it be debris that has something so obvious as even the OceanGate emblem, the sticker, the logo itself on it? What identifying characteristics exist that would indicate to the ROV team that this debris is unique and could perhaps be from the Titan sub?
There's a number of ways the ROV could tell that this is new debris versus old debris. I think you had a couple of clips of the vehicle underwater looking out through the porthole or some other vehicles down there. And as a diver, you've seen this. You're in the water and you see the snow coming down. We talked about this earlier, right? So as that, we call it snow, as that biological material, waste and salt and silt and all of that falls through the water column, the longer debris is on the seabed, the more of that lays on top of it. That's why when you look at older wrecks, they have that dull look to them.
Yeah.
The ROV gets close and the thruster blows that stuff off, you get a cleaner look. This stuff hasn't been down long enough to accumulate a coating of snow on it. So, and it's most of the outside of it is bright white.
That was my next question. The hull is white.
Right. And the housing for the thrusters is white. So I do think the rudder was black. Oh, look, there's a sign on it. There's a picture of it now. So
There's a picture of what? What are you seeing?
Of the vehicle. So the vast majority of the exterior just happens to be on TV.
Okay.
The vast
I'll throw it up here.
amount of the exterior of the vehicle is white.
But really quickly, Mark, about that design choice, it being white, is that standard?
Yeah, a lot of them are white.
Okay.
White or yellow, because those are the two colors that show up best underwater when you put light on them. If I'm doing an underwater construction job, a lot of times tools that I'm using are painted yellow or painted white, because when the light hits it, and actually if it's something that I have to have a lot of control over, it'll be painted yellow versus white, because when the lights for my camera hit that white, it whites out the camera and I can't see what I'm doing. Yellow doesn't reflect the light quite as much, but it's still highly reflective in light. So most of those vehicles, even if you look at the ROVs, most of the flotation on those vehicles is painted yellow.
Yeah, I see people asking, like, it has, they said even if they were unconscious, it has a thing where it can float back up to the top as well. And, they were looking for the surface, at the surface too, because they could have just been bobbing kind of up and down at the surface and still not being able to get out. Should organizations be allowed to sell commercial expeditions? And should they be approved or certified? Things may change after this. Apparently they were out 8 hours before anyone who called. Yeah, that's in an article here. Here, I'll show you actually, because they're talking about how it took 8 hours. Exit this. It took far too long. Family of missing British billionaire Hamish Harding slam OceanGate over frightening 8-hour delay in raising the alarm after sub vanished, as co-founder insists they could still be alive and rescue mission continues. Definitely going to be a lot of finger pointing, to say the very least. Let's see here. Where was it at? Frightening 8-hour delay in raising the alarm after sub vanished, as the firm co-founder insisted rescuers have longer than we think. Despite predictions, the oxygen has ran out. The world is now praying for a miracle, and rescuers estimate the vital oxygen supply would end at 12:08 p.m. UK time, or 7:08 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, which it's obviously past 7:08 a.m. This was this morning when it was predicted to go out, the oxygen. Banging has been heard 30-minute intervals from the depths of the Atlantic, possibly from the men striking the side of the sub, but it has not yet been located. However, since this article came out, they have found some debris. They're not saying what debris, but it sounds like it's a newer debris next to, in the area or the vicinity of the Titanic. You would obviously be able to tell new debris from, debris laying there since literally 1911. The company's Titan submerged at 1 p.m. UK time on Saturday, or around 400 miles southeast of St. John, Newfoundland, where the U.S. Coast Guard until 10:40. Kathleen Constant, a cousin of Mr. Harding, who is 58 years old, said the delay before contacting the authorities was far too long. She told the Telegraph, "It's very frightening. It took so long for them to get going to the rescue. It's far too long. I would have thought 3 hours would have been be the bare minimum." So last moments before the Titanic 5 boarded sub reveals as barista who served them coffee say the crew was dressed in blue in the OceanGate Titanic jackets, were keen to dive after waiting days for the weather to break. I know they say many times it takes, they'll go out there and they'll have to wait days before they dive. The weather has to be right, the waves, and many other things. So, just one of those things. I know what they went through moment. Titanic diver breaks down in tears over missing Titan sub as it brings back memories of his own botched underwater visit to shipwreck. Hold on. Okay, here, we'll watch that. It's on another one. Give me 1 second. Here we go. We'll watch this. One second as it loads, y'all.
El señor Stanley perdió la vida instantáneamente.
Le dispararon con una metralleta.
Mataron a Paco Stanley. ¿Qué? Era un acontecimiento.
You lose track of time down there, Dermot, but it was somewhere between a half hour and an hour, but it seemed like an eternity because every minute down there that you're stuck and you're literally buried alive in this tin can, there's no other way to put it, not buried alive in ground, but you're buried alive in the water. And so it just stretches out for an eternity. You lose any sense of time. But it was somewhere between a half hour and an hour, I say the better part of an hour, that we finally sensed that something had happened. The sub quieted down. We had a sense of floating. Remember, it's utterly dark down there. There's absolutely no light whatsoever.
Being down there and you can't even see anything around you, so you are feeling,
If you ask
other people in the,
no one thinks less of you for.
You are feeling, your way around. It's got to be just gruesome. Journey to the bottom of the ocean. Dr. Michael Golan, or is it? Yeah, was the first TV reporter to visit the Titanic wreck. At this point, a bang was heard as large chunks of debris were floating through the water. And here are the people at the So this is how the robot is at the searching for them. This is French owned, and it can go down to 20,000 feet. And remember, they're at 12,000 feet. Self-locking hook. If it finds a Titan, it could attach a cable to the submarine, but it doesn't. I mean, it doesn't really sound like it's going to be doing much of that, because it appears that they have found some type of debris, which is really disheartening, to be quite honest with you. They did, who knows? Stay out of the ocean, people. It is alive. The ocean, think since the beginning of time, since we've been, sailing the seas, and the amount of human lives the ocean has taken, it's really incredible, to be quite honest with you. Go back to JB here. Oh, okay. I'll show you this real quick. For those of you just coming in, this is what it kind of looks like for...
A lot of people wondering what a submarine implosion would look like. This is an example of what the submarine would look like when it implodes.
That is crazy. The ocean is very intimidating, as it should be. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Okay.
So they're typically white or yellow.
So back to a point you were making before I asked you that follow-up question there. Would you be able to see that white snow, as you call it, on a white surface like the... we're trying to answer as many questions, clear the air, trying to provide as much reliable, good information on screen to as many platforms as possible. That's part of what we do here in the WFLA Now Stream Center. So Mark, myself, we're going to spend some time now looking for those, or I'll be looking for the hashtag HeyJB questions and comments, hashtag HeyMark questions and comments, and we'll start to bring them up on screen. In fact, let's start to filter for those hashtags now and hit enter, and okay. We're going to try some of these questions. I'm already seeing, folks, they are all, some of them coming in are questions that maybe are, I don't know, repeats from hours ago, but some questions that are dated clearly. Let's go to Stormproof. Hashtag Hey Mark. We don't know the answer to this, but asking again to the conversation we were just having, is any of the debris identifiable?
I'm sure that somebody who's looking at it will be able to identify what it is, but we don't have any images of the debris that they have found. So there's no way that I could identify it. It's the people that are looking at it are well qualified to be able to identify what it is, but at this point, we can't.
Let's go to, we are going to do exclusively hashtag HeyJB on and hashtag HeyMark on Twitter soon. That's kind of a little bit separate. So let's go to our other social media platforms just for the time being. We'll transition to Twitter here in just a moment.
Thank you, Crooked Arrow, for the $1.99. Appreciate that.
I'll look through some of these questions and comments. We answered that already. We answered that already.
And thank you for the Cash App. I do appreciate it. I don't want to say your name. So the person who just sent that, if you want to put it in here, then I'll say your name. But I don't want to say your name here. So thank you so much. I appreciate it. So I am looking at, where is it at? Also, on the dailymail.com, there was a couple who asked for a refund, that they believed that they were cutting too many corners, and they just did not feel safe. And I think there was a little bit of an issue. Here we go. They pulled out. Okay. I asked for a refund. They were cutting too many corners. Friend of Hamish Harding says he pulled out of joining the billionaire on missing OceanGate sub-Titan due to, quote, safety concerns. A thrill seeker who intended to join billionaire Hamish Harding on the missing Titanic sub pulled out of the dive because he thought OceanGate was, quote, cutting too many corners. It has emerged. Chris Brown, not the singer, not the rapper, 61-year-old who had paid the deposit to go on the, what they call the doomed voyage, but says he changed his mind after becoming concerned by the quality of technology and materials used on the vessel. The Sun reported among the concerns were OceanGate used the, quote, old scaffolding poles for the ballast, and the fact that its controls were, quote, based on computer game style controllers. He told the newspaper that despite being, quote, one of the first people to sign up for this trip, he ultimately decided the risk was too high, end quote. Mr. Brown added that he feels, quote, really upset about Hamish, end quote, who is among the 5 passengers on the submarine called the Titan that is currently missing. The sub lost communication during the dive to the Titanic wreckage, which is around 12,500 feet below the Atlantic. A frantic search and rescue operation is underway to locate the recover the vessel before its 96-hour oxygen supply runs out, which has now ran out. I'm guessing this is Chris Brown. Yes, this is Richard Brown and Sir Richard Branson. Thank you, and Virgin. Mr. Brown claims he paid the deposits, but says he changed his mind. So this is them basically when they lower it into the ocean on this platform. Mr. Brown and Mr. Harding signed up for the 80,000 pound voyage after sharing a, quote, few beers while holidaying on Sir Richard Branson's island. The pair paid the 10% deposit for the trip, which has since more than doubled in price while the Titan is still being developed, he claimed. But Mr. Brown alleged that the years that followed, he learned OceanGate had, quote, missed key targets when depth testing the submersible. Did I say that right? Submersible. There we go. The multi-million digital marketing tycoon found it concerning that the vessel was controlled by a PlayStation controller. You know, I mean, sometimes simplicity is okay. There's, sometimes when things are simple, a lot less can fail. But I mean, I don't know if I'm going to trust the technology when I'm 12,500 feet with a China-based $20 controller either. Putting my life, I paid $250,000 to go down here. Why don't you spend a little bit more on that freaking controller? Just saying. That's the way I feel about it, at least. You know what I mean? I can't imagine. Just can't imagine. So here we go. Here's that.
Hotjar takes product teams from wondering WTF to knowing what to do next. From
Our crews are working around the clock to ensure that we are doing everything possible to locate the Titan and the 5 crew members. Yesterday, we stood up a unified command consisting of expertise from the United States Coast Guard, the United States Navy, Canadian Armed Forces and Coast Guard, and the Titan's parent company, OceanGate Expedition. This is a complex search effort which requires multiple agencies with subject matter expertise and specialized equipment. Approximately 1 hour and 45 minutes into the scheduled dive, the Polar Prince lost all communication with the Titan. The Polar Prince conducted an initial search and then requested Coast Guard assistance. The U.S. Coast Guard in Boston assumed the responsibility of search and rescue mission coordinator and immediately launched search assets. Since Sunday, the Coast Guard has coordinated search efforts with the U.S. and Canadian Coast Guard, Air National Guard aircraft, and the Polar Prince, which have searched a combined 7,600 square miles, an area larger than the state of Connecticut. These search efforts have focused on both surface, with C-130 aircraft searching by sight.
Do the phones work underwater? I know the sound's popping. It's something with on that end. I don't know why it's popping. But they did, from what I understand, communicate by phone, like text. Is someone controlling my home with a game controller? I don't know. But I was watching something. Think about it. When there's one little window you can see out of, but other than that, when you go down and you're paying $250,000, you're still looking at the Titanic on a screen. You get what I mean? Like they have a camera and a television, and you're still looking at the Titanic on a screen. So is it worth the $250,000? So for future exploring, I hope they upgrade the submarines for this reason. Yeah, I mean, as of now, only private companies go down to. Yeah, I'd rather watch it on TV. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, people are paying for the experience, I guess. I mean, I wouldn't mind, going in a submarine. That wouldn't bother me, but something that's not regulated, and they're going deeper than, way deeper than military submarines go. I'm just not interested personally. You know what's sick now? Hella people will want to go down. Possibly, Miss Fletcher. Very possible. Yeah, claustrophobic. I mean, it would be extraordinarily claustrophobic to know you can't get out. You're bolted in. and you're just not getting out. It's just not going to happen. It's really, you're sorry, not going to happen.
Well, look, people keep asking about the concept of a black box. Let me ask you this question to launch off of what Clark is saying. If you're evaluating this debris,
water that would ingress into that vehicle, you wouldn't be able to stop it before you had too much water in the vehicle to be able to come back up to the surface. You would exceed your reserve buoyancy.
and I'm just trying, because the pressure to me is so interesting, only because let's just say for argument's sake, and I'm gaining an education here by learning from you, Mark. So let's just say that there was a hole had a breach of some kind, the size of a toothpick was causing water barrier, right? And again, this is for purely educational purposes, folks, so please just bear with me. Is the water shooting in so much that it would cut your hand?
Cut your arm off? Yes.
Oh my goodness. Okay. So the size of the breach is also a potential complication because it could harm the crew members, especially in such a constrained space.
I mean, you think of a pressure washer, right? You've got a hose that's at what, 12 pounds.
You're fine with the cap. Don't worry about the
pressure
cap.
in your house, and you hook that up, and now the engine on that pressure washer is building pressure. The hose that it comes out of is much smaller. Now, instead of 12 pounds, you're looking at 150 pounds pressure. And that's just for, a $50 pressure washer you can buy at Home Depot. And the pressure at, 2,000 meters is significantly more than 150 pounds.
Taking your hashtag Hey Mark, hashtag Hey JB questions and comments for the next little while. We want to make sure that your voices are heard out there and that we're covering our bases, answering as many questions, spotlighting as many opinions as possible from our audience, because people clearly they're invested in this from around the world.
Can you imagine the size of a toothpick? It would cut your arm off. Like if there was a hole. Oh my God. That is insane. They're looking for the crying kitty. Thank you, Southern Grammy. Thank you, my love. Appreciate your support. Thank you. Means a lot. Thank you. Sorry if you hear my cat. He's mental. He really is. Yeah, I cannot. Did I hear a cat, or is it? Yeah, it's my cat. He's here meowing. Did they find the sub? We don't. This is what they have found. They found a debris field that around the area, in the vicinity is the words they use. So it sounds like they have found something very significant. There's going to be a press conference that we're going to cover at 3 o'clock. All cats are mental. Yeah, that's true. So, we're going to be waiting on that. I can't even imagine, Justin. Yes, you will see it on the screen. So why pay and take the risk? Yeah. You're still going to see the Titanic on the screen in the submarine. So we can sit at home and watch it for virtually free, right? After hurricane trapped. Debris area as they imploded. It sounds that way. Yes, cursed with curiosity. It is sounding very much like they have found a debris field in the vicinity of the area. They said it's not so much the area. They said it just takes so much time for the data to get back to them and them read the data. It takes time for that to happen. It's So that's, I guess it just takes time. You know, you got to think the ocean, we only have like 15% of it mapped. And like we have the moon mapped and Mars mapped, you know. Oh, it's really crazy. Did you guys hear about this? We're going to come back to the sub in just a second. But did you guys hear? This is disgusting, in my opinion. Lab grown meat is cleared for sale in the United States. Excuse me? I don't think so. Who can you imagine lab grown meat? They're going to be selling lab grown meat? That is disgusting. That is disgusting. What the heck is that? Well, we're going to learn. You ready? So the Coast Guard says debris field has been found near the Titanic. Yeah, okay. Making sure. All right, Imagine Peace. Thank you so much for the $4.99. Thank you. I do appreciate you and your support. It means a lot to me. So thank you. So let's talk about this lab grown meat. Give me 1 second here. I need to unshare some of this stuff here. All right. Cultivated meat, also known as lab-grown meat, has been cleared for sale in the United States, only in the USA. Upside Foods and Good Meat, two companies that make what they call, quote, cultivated chicken, end quote, said Wednesday that they have gotten approval from the U.S. Department of Agriculture to start producing their cell-based proteins. That makes me want to throw up right there. Cell-based proteins, because obviously to grow something you have to have cells or embryos to do this. I can't even. Good Meats, which is owned by plant-based egg substitute maker Eat Just, said the production is starting immediately. Cultivated or lab-grown meat is grown in a giant vat. I give up. I'm done. Much like you would find at a beer brewery. Wednesday's move follows a series of previous approvals which had paved the way for sales of cultivated meats in the United States. Last week, Good Meats and Upside said they had received approval for labels for its production from the USDA in March, said it received a so-called no questions letter from the Food and Drug Administration. That letter states the administration is satisfied that the product is safe to sell in the United States. The FDA issued a similar letter, Upside Foods, in November. So it is both overseen by the USDA and the FDA. Good Meat, which has been selling its products in Singapore, advised its product as meat without slaughter. Honey, I'm sorry, we just want to slaughter the little chicken or something, because I am not eating something that comes from a damn vat. Sorry. I can't even. All right. Meat without slaughter, a more humane approach to eating meat. Supporters hope that cultivated meat will help fight climate change by reducing the need for traditional animal agriculture, which emits greenhouse gases. Sorry, we're just going to have to produce a little greenhouse gas on that one. I can't eat something that comes out of a vat. I'm sorry. The company had previously announced that it was partnering with chef and restaurant Jose Andres for bringing the item to Washington, D.C. restaurant. It is working with his team on a launch, but doesn't have specific information on timing at the point. All right, guys, what do you think about, do you think like our kids, if they're younger or whatever, or our grandkids, do you think that this is something that they're going to think nothing of? They'll be like, used to eat meat from like a living cow? What do you mean? You killed those poor cows? Like, are they going to trick us or label it? It will have to be labeled. It will have to be labeled. Yeah. It's the same as like Impossible meat. Well, the Impossible burger is vegetables. That uses technology to make it taste, I guess, more like a burger. However, they will say that someday. Yeah. I think that's probably the future. That's probably the future. They're going to be like, you guys used to kill like chickens and cows to like eat? What do you mean? I can see that in the near future. Impossible meat modified. Food is becoming grosser and grosser. I know. I think maybe, kids, definitely grandkids, will be able, probably won't find anything wrong with it, but I think our generation.
Sabrina wants to know, #HeyJB, what else could be the 30-minute interval banging be? You talked about this earlier, Mark. Like there are a lot of different things that banging could have been. People were so convinced that the banging came from seeing right now a singular source, and it is a source that is international for us here in the United States. It is Sky News in the UK. So a WhatsApp message
Okay, guys, this is update here. Breaking: friend of two of the men missing on board the submersible confirms the debris found was, quote, a landing frame and a rear cover from the submersible, after receiving a WhatsApp message live on Sky News latest here. Okay, so I'm going to go to Sky News.
Reporter with Sky News from a friend of two of the men says that within the debris field, and Mark, I'm sure you're checking your phone to see if you're hearing the same thing in your circles, but that
I just got a message from someone who knows two people on the ship, and who is a long-time, very close friend of mine, and an explorer as well.
But, you'd like to think you had that opportunity to say that, but no, I wouldn't have. I wouldn't want to be there. No.
David, just bear with us a moment. I want to go to Newfoundland, where much of the operation, the search and rescue operation, is happening from. John Sparks, you can see there, our correspondent. John, just bring us up to date with what we know.
Well, Mark, I think you in that interview have done a great deal to help us understand what is going on right now. That was an absolutely fascinating and ultimately a very sad interview. Your guest, David Means, saying that it appears that the search and rescue team have found fundamental parts of the structure belonging to this submersible. If I got it right, the fairing and the landing, but fundamental parts of this structure that have popped up, not the hull itself, but other structurally critical parts of that structure that have come up, that have formed part of this debris that we've heard from the US Coast Guard is now floating on the surface of the ocean. I think interesting, credible. The Explorers Club is well known, 100-year history. They will have contacts on the Polar Prince. The Polar Prince is essentially the ship at the center of
Floating
all of this.
on the top,
They're running
the frame.
the search and rescue operation from that ship, and we understand that that ship is right above the wreck of the Titanic. They would have the contacts. They're going to know what's going on, and if the Explorers Club has been able to glean that information, well, I think that's really enlightening. Important to say, this hasn't been confirmed. We are waiting for a press conference in Boston with the US Coast Guard. This clearly will be put to them. And I think it's important to say that they wouldn't have put out this tweet. And let me just read it for you, because it's significant. They wouldn't have done this unless there was a high likelihood, in my opinion, a high likelihood that the debris on the surface of the ocean belonged to the submersible. Let's read this tweet. A debris field was discovered within the search area by an ROV, that's remotely operated vehicle, near the Titanic. Near the Titanic. Experts within the Unified Command are evaluating the information. Again, they wouldn't have put that out. They would have taken that decision to put it out very seriously indeed. We know that they're in constant contact with the family and the friends of the 5 men on board that ship. They would have known the consequences of putting that out, both for the family members and also for everybody else who's following this, quite frankly. But I think what your guest, David Means, says is highly credible. I think it's fascinating. It's absolutely fascinating. It's also tragic, because I think it strongly suggests that there has been some sort of catastrophic rupture, some sort of catastrophic implosion, and it has happened close to the Titanic, which makes sense on one level, despite the currents, despite the swell in the North Atlantic, that some of this debris has popped up on the surface close to the Titanic. Yeah.
Okay, John, thank you very much. And David, you just want to, your information is that this debris is on the seabed.
It's on the seabed, not on the surface.
Right.
It's easy to get the terminology.
I don't know if
yes,
this
it's on the
is a real
seabed. That's the only
photo.
place it would
It's
be.
pro.
That's where the ROVs are working.
It's saying, 1 second. It is that they're taking a break on that right now. So this is Titan submarine implosion debris field. Let's see if let's go to the latest. I don't know if that's it. I wish people would stop doing memes. Breaking first photograph Titan debris field. That can't be it. Implosion, explosion, debris. Yeah. This was them going down. This is an actual. This was her watching. This was someone like a family member or something watching. I don't know if that's it or not. I don't want to say that because I'm not comfortable. I don't with saying that because I don't know, to be quite honest with you. We'll take it back to Hey JB for a second while
Club
Sky
WhatsApp
News is on
chat
break.
level as NBC or CNN or
And please let me be
ABC,
clear.
to maybe answer some questions.
Okay, and they quit. Sky News is where it's at right now. I'm just kind of waiting. Okay, we're gonna go back to Sky News because they're the ones getting the information in real. Not this lizard here. I think that pic is fine. Yeah, it's not verified, so I'm not gonna. I'm just kind of. So what they're saying is that like the frame, from what I understand, is floating. Okay, here it is. Let me show you this. All right. Debris landing frame and rear cover from sub, experts say. A rescue expert says the debris found in the search for Titan was, quote, a landing frame and a rear cover from the submersible, end quote. David Muirnans, who is friends with the two of the passengers on board Titan, says he is part of a WhatsApp group involving the Explorers Club. Mr. David told Sky News, the president of the club, who is, quote, directly connected, end quote, to the ship on the site, said to the group, quote, it was a landing frame and a rear cover from the submersible, end quote. David says, quote, again, this is an unconventional submarine. That rear cover is the pointy end to it, and the landing frame is the little frame that it seems to sit on. He says this confirms that it is the submersible. Okay, so if you can tell, like right here, it goes to a point, the back part of it, and this is the frame, right? This is the frame, which means it does seem to say that. Here we go. We're back.
The objects has been found, and that's the most crucial one, because that is a structural part of the whole whole assemblage, and then the cover at the back, which is just really a fairing that says OceanGate and Titan, that has been located as well, and that's less important. It corroborates what we're thinking, but it's less important because it's not a structural part. It's just a fairing, a cover, to make it look that way. Yeah. But the bottom part of it, the frame, which you see at the very bottom, those horizontal bars with the rings on it, those are ballast weights. That keeps it down. So if this submersible wanted to do an abort and and drop the frame, that's what it would be dropping.
So it could.
That's a possibility at those there before attachment points, and that's where it would do that, an emergency abort. So that is a possibility. That wouldn't necessarily detach the rear fairing, but you know, the indications are not good. The key thing is the hull, where the men are inside, hasn't been located yet, and that is exactly what I was talking about. And also, I'm reading here, no sighting of main sub yet.
Yeah.
That is the hull.
That's the hull.
That hasn't been found yet.
Right. Judging from what you say and what the information you're getting about what's been found, what is, you know, the most likely thing that has occurred here?
Well, it doesn't change. It doesn't change much. Because at the end of the day, it all depends on what the ROV pilots are actually seeing through their video screens.
Yeah.
And if they're seeing that frame in a mangled, distorted condition, then they would be reporting that as debris. If they saw that outside fairing.
I'm going to pause something because I just got something. A former passenger on the Titanic submersible describes this as, quote, suicide mission, end quote, a broken parts held together with, quote, zip ties.
On the stern, as being splintered, broken, they would be reporting that as debris. For the Coast Guard to use that term debris.
Debris field.
Debris field. That's, you know, I mean, I don't want to be too graphic, but if you're looking for a body and you use the word remains,
yeah.
That's the equivalent of what we're looking at here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why use that term? And the only reason that I would use that term, if I was out there reporting back to the command control of this whole thing, is if I saw that frame in a condition that indicated there was no hope for finding the hull in an intact condition so that people could be found and rescued. You would not be reporting it that way. You know, because surely they would know, everybody would be thinking what we're thinking.
So the search now is clearly for the
yes,
hull.
Yeah. For that. And
they're in recovery
mode. I mean, we were just talking earlier about, you know, the regulations surrounding all this and how such a vessel is able to go down without being risk assessed and so forth. So there are many questions to ask. You're very clearly involved in this. What do you think the consequences of this will be for the sort of little industry that this is?
Well, as I said earlier, I think it's a major wake-up call, and there'll be obviously an investigation. What happened, a forensic investigation, most likely a recovery of the debris. This will go on for days or even weeks afterwards. And that's the type of thing that I do professionally. And then from that, you know, somebody will have to take charge of that investigation. This, again, is a completely unprecedented situation. You know, if an aircraft goes down in this country, the Air Accident Investigation Branch is responsible for it. If a ship sinks, there's the Marine Accident Investigation Branch, but there is no such thing as the Submersible Accident Investigation Branch.
Right.
So who is going to take responsibility for that? It's in international waters. There's 3 British nationals on board. Is it the American government? I don't know. This is unprecedented, but somebody has to take responsibility and jurisdictional control about a formal investigation about what happened, which obviously potentially has legal ramifications down the line. But beyond that, the bigger issue for my industry is, should we be allowing this sort of thing to happen again not just in terms of the design of the submersible, but should we be taking passengers down?
Just one question. Is there a possibility that the landing frame that you say is down there could have become detached and that the main, body of the vessel remains intact, or is that's not that?
Well, it means that the whole configuration is falling apart.
Right.
That's the main weight. I don't know how many tons the OceanGate sub is, but we're talking tons here. Is sitting on that frame. That's not being held by a couple of small bolts. There's some real structure that's holding this all together. If that frame is disconnected from the hull, then something has gone wrong. And again, in combination with the use of that term debris field, the implications are pretty apparent. We'll wait for
we will.
Yeah.
But listen, David, we appreciate you coming in today and in these circumstances, and thank you very much for your expertise.
Well, thank you to you and your staff for being so considerate.
We appreciate it, and we appreciate your time.
My pleasure.
Right, this is the News Hour at 6. Coming up, the US Coast Guard says debris has been found in the search for the missing submersible. A friend of the Titan crew on board tells Sky News the debris includes parts that have come from that vessel. All the latest next.
Sorry. Didn't mean to mute there. I meant to unmute rather. But it appears as Sky News has the best sources right now. They're on a WhatsApp, I guess, chat with the people who are affiliated with this submersible. So they have the best sources as of now. It appears as there has been some type of failure of the submarine, and they have found the frame on the top of the surface of the ocean, it appears. And I'm guessing, like, let me see if we can see it here, if I can show it to you. Like this part, this is the frame that it sits on, and they have found like the back apart from what I'm understanding, but they haven't, as of now, they haven't found any sort of remains or anything of that nature, which they may never, you know.
Where were you when the ship struck the iceberg?
In the steerage class.
You were emigrating to America?
Yes, I was coming over here to my sister.
If I may ask, how old were you then?
I was 16, going on 17.
Okay.
17 in October.
We are back with this.
And that the debris includes part of the landing frame and the rear cover of the missing submersible. 5 men, including 3 Britons, are on board the Titan, which was attempting to explore the wreck of the Titanic. Well, joining me now is Admiral Sir James Bernal Nugent, former Commander-in-Chief, Fleet of the Royal Navy. Thank you for talking to us once again. And, well, I just wonder whether you were watching when our guest, who is the search and rescue expert who knows the people on board and has been getting some sort of detail from the Atlantic, talking about that, you know, that the landing frame was part of the debris and part of the cover. It does seem pretty ominous.
It does. I did indeed hear David speaking as the news came through on his WhatsApp group. In fact, I'd go a bit further than him, actually, because I think the fact the Coast Guard used the expression debris field suggests actually that there's quite a lot more than just those 2 items. I think the 2 items, the frame and the stern section, the cover, the fairing over the stern, that would have told the people operating the ROV that they've got the right wreckage, that this wreckage was definitely came from the Titan. But the fact they use the expression a debris field suggests to me that there'll be other smaller bits of debris, lying around in the same vicinity. But we've really got to wait, haven't we, until I think it's 8 o'clock this evening when we'll get more information about what's been found. It's a sensitive issue too. Who knows what the debris field, actually consists of.
Exactly, and we will wait until 8 o'clock. You're right, when that news conference happens. Just at a more general point, this detail has emerged on the day that these remote, underwater vehicles have arrived on the scene. So clearly they have made a huge difference to this search.
Absolutely. I mean, it's exactly the right technology. These ROVs, they do all sorts of work on and in the vicinity of the ocean floor, exploration work, and servicing cable. We all know there's huge networks of undersea internet cables and things nowadays, and there's the whole oil and gas industry. The use of these ROVs is very widespread. There's not many of them that can go that deep, and obviously it took a while to get them on station to help with the search. But they're exactly the right technology for this sort of search. That's not to say that the search effort that was being done beforehand wasn't valuable.
Thank you, Dodie, celebrating 4 months. Thank you for your
Titan might have
support.
been on the surface or just wallowing just below the surface. If they've been able to shed the ballast and rise gradually back up to the surface. So the search using aircraft and sonar buoys was well worth doing. We've all heard about the tapping sounds, which sadly turned out not to be tapping sounds, but some other noise in the ocean. That was obviously well worth investigating. So, it's a question of getting into circumstances like this, so the best technology you can as fast as you can. But the ROVs that can get down that deep are obviously going to be the turning point in the search, and that indeed is how it's turned out.
And what are your thoughts in general terms about vessels like this, submersibles like this, going down to such a depth?
Well, I think as the years go by and as technologies advance and mankind wants to explore deeper and deeper in the oceans and further out into space. There's no reason for barring this sort of activity. All the people on board the Titan were volunteers. They made their own choice to be there. Nobody else actually was endangered by this activity. It's unlikely that there'd be casualties as part of the search effort, or any other consequential casualties. They made their own decision. It would appear they were extremely well briefed in the risks they were taking. So my inclination is actually, hopefully, mankind will always want to explore frontiers, wherever they may be, whether it's Mars or whether it's the Mariana Trench or wrecks in the ocean. Technology advances. Technology, no new technology is perfect. This craft, I think, was made of carbon fiber, which is very unusual for a submersible, and maybe there's some lessons to be learned about that. Who knows? But I'd be wary of putting impediments in the way of mankind's curiosity, and particularly at the personal level. Obviously sad for friends and relatives, but these are adults.
The carbon fiber was a huge stipulation that was not really it brought up a lot of scrutiny on this submarine, because it's not typically made of carbon fiber, and the owner talked about it as well.
Of war graves from ships that have been sunk in wartime of many nationalities and over hundreds of years, from the Spanish Armada onwards. And provided the thing actually that needs regulating is just to make sure that these wrecks are respected as graves and are not plundered. I think visiting ships like the Titanic or other ex-Royal Navy, American Navy, whatever, ships on the seabed, old sailing ships with their cannons and so on. I mean, why not get in a tourist, if it's safe, get in a tourist submarine to visit these things? People visit war cemeteries, in Normandy and all around the world. The remains of war and journeys in peace and travel and adventure. They're there for people to engage with, provided it's done in a sensible and respectful way.
Okay, Sir James, appreciate your time this evening. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
This is the News Hour at 6. Coming up, we'll have the day's other major story. The Bank of England's interest rate soars to 5%, but
All right, so they're going to take a break. Here's a woman from the Titanic. They just take a short break. 2 survivors of the Titanic told their incredible stories of being saved from the sinking ship in 1956.
Mrs. Manning, where were you when the ship struck the iceberg?
In the steerage class.
You were emigrating to America?
Yes, I was coming over here to my sister.
If I may ask, how old were you then?
I was 16, going on 17. Be 17 in October.
When did you first realize how serious the trouble was?
Oh, I didn't until I got to this country. I thought it was part of the trip, to tell you the truth. I didn't realize that there was any danger.
You didn't realize there was any danger?
No, I thought that was a pretty hard way to get here, but I didn't really think it was as bad as it was until after.
When the alarm was sounded, what happened?
Well, I was asleep at the time, and I thought then the ship had landed. So I thought we were here in this country.
Then you went up on deck?
And then I went up on deck, and then we were told to go down, that there was a piece of ice on deck, and that when they get it off of it, everything would be all right, to go down and go to bed.
How did you escape?
Well, we were standing on the steerage, 3rd class they call it, and then we couldn't get up second. And of course, then there was one man with us, and he was our guardian angel, and he said, for God's sake, let the women up. So at that, I got up.
And then you got,
and
then you got into a lifeboat.
And no, then I had to go to first cabin. The lifeboats were only going from first cabin. So there was a man on the second deck, and he asked me to go on his shoulder, and I climbed over, and then I think it was the last boat that was going out.
Did you take
They didn't want to let me on because there was too many on the boat already.
But you got into the boat.
But I said to the man I'd like to go with my sister because there was a neighbor with me, and I thought he'd feel, because I didn't want to lose the crowd. I didn't really think it was any danger, but I thought I'd miss them in the dark. You know, it was very dark.
Did you see the ship sink?
Oh yes, I was looking at it sinking when we were in the lifeboat, because we were in the lifeboats for 9 hours.
And then which ship rescued you?
Carpathia. Carpathia picked us up then there.
Thought that was interesting. She had no idea that anything was going on until I texted my engineer dad about the Titan, and his reply morbid to say the least. Yes, I've been following it. Hope it's near or at the surface. It can be found more easily. I think that if it's deep, there's no hope. Haven't seen much discussion of an emergency plans to jettison ballast and rise to the ocean surface. Horribly unsafe design, no navigation system, poor communication system, exposed thrusters, no inflation, flotation, collier once it rises, limited air supply, locked in, no way to get out, no way to get fresh air when on the surface. I'd be nervous taking it to deep end of our pool, never mind to 13,000 feet, because the surface is total blackness and cold and 6,000 pound inch pressure. Interesting choices about life and death and air. Enough air for 5 people for 4 days, or enough air for 1 person for 20 days. Once goes who goes first and why and when you realize you need more than 4 days to be saved. Does the irresponsible CEO go first? Does the billionaire offer to give billion to those who take their lives? Does everyone sacrifice to save the 18-year-old? Wow. That is morbid. That is kind of morbid. I mean, if you was down there, you know, to be saved, would you take one of the lives to keep your oxygen on longer? That's kind of morbid, but I guess you would have to think about it. These are the missing people. Yes, guys, do me a favor and hit that thumbs up button one good time. Let's see if Sky News. Okay, Sky News is back.
They raised rates by 500 basis points.
Oh shit! We
and
don't want to care
inflation's
about
come
that.
down by 1.
Okay, so debris field discovered within the search of the Titanic. U.S. Coast Guard says. We'll wait for that. See what it does for us.
Hotjar takes product teams from wondering WTF to knowing what to do next. From unexpected.
So rescue expert, friends of 2 of those on board, and you're getting some news. You're hearing some news.
Yeah, there's a WhatsApp group between ourselves and the Explorers Club that we've all been connected to as soon as this happened. And our president is directly connected to the ships that are out there. And the message that they're telling me, if you're talking about debris, it was a landing frame and a rear cover from the submersible. So again, this is a very unconventional submarine. That rear cover is that pointy end of it.
Yeah.
And the landing frame is this little frame that it seems to sit on, and that's how it gets docked into the landing bit.
Right.
So that confirms it's the submersible.
Yeah, it is extraordinarily cold. 6 p.m. company helping with search says its focus is on tragic loss. 7 minutes ago, missing British explorer was enjoying life and not somebody who was, quote, foolishly doing things, end quote, friend says. 30 minutes ago, what's the fairing and the landing frame? Okay. The Hey JB, they have taken a break as well. They will be back in just a little bit. You know how they always say the Simpsons can predict. Here's a weird fact. Former Simpson showrunner Mike Reese, I guess that's how you pronounce it, last year rode the same Titanic submersible that is now missing. The last episode he ever produced was the Simpson Tide, involving Homer and co getting stuck on damaged submarine. Isn't that crazy? The Simpsons always predicts the future. How do they do it? Yeah. So thought that was a little bit of an interesting piece of information. Isn't that's terrible about the father in Ohio killing his 3 boys, and now he's out crying like it's something, isn't it? Imploded. He's going around. Let's see here.
Is a GOP presidential candidate, Francis Suarez, with me.
Okay. Give me 1 second, guys. Make sure Sky News is. Nope, it's still not back. Okay. Let's see here. Looking for something. Give me. Yeah, that doesn't sound like anybody has survived in this, to say the least. 1 second. Let me see. Are they back yet? No. Nothing yet. Equipment recovered, found it. It was found at the surface. Expert who raised fears about Titan sub 5 years ago says his warnings were not heeded. Breaking. Can y'all see that? Okay. You can. His warnings were not heeded.
Missing Titanic submersible. Expert who raised fears about Titan sub 5 years ago says his warnings were not heeded. Communication with Titan was lost last Sunday during a voyage to the Titanic shipwreck in the North Atlantic off the coast of Canada. An expert who raised concerns about the Titan submersible 5 years ago has told Sky News that his warnings were not heeded. 133. We say we have rules and regulations. Well, they come because of mistakes, because of things we have learned, and we embody that in a process of certification. In a letter to OceanGate, the company that owns the missing sub, he had warned that a single negative event could undo an enviable safety track record that spanned 40 years. Communication with Titan was lost last Sunday during a voyage to the Titanic shipwreck in the North Atlantic off the coast of Canada. Arthur Lowable, who travelled aboard Titan as a passenger in 2021, told Sky News that he felt the vessel was not safe and everybody was nervous on the trip. Speaking to Sky News after a debris field was found at the search site for Titan, Mr. Connon said, "Father Neptune has absolutely no patience for humanity. If we get it wrong, we get it wrong, and we pay the price." As well as lacking international safety certification, an old PlayStation controller is used to steer Titan, which Mr. Rush defended as super durable. The letter from the Marine Technology Society was addressed to OceanGate's CEO Stockton Rush, who was one of the 5 men on board the missing submersible. Mr. Connon had argued that it was critical for the company to spend additional time and expense on adhering to industry standards, but Mr. Rush had claimed regulators were holding OceanGate back and stifling innovation. OceanGate was taking a strategy of, well, we intentionally break the rules because we can do it better and faster, Mr. Connon said.
You don't break
If
the
we play
rule.
in this game, we have to be absolutely sure of ourselves. Debris field found in search for Titan. Love updates. On behalf of industry experts, Mr. Connon had written, "Our apprehension is that the current experimental approach adopted by OceanGate could result in negative outcomes, from minor to catastrophic, that would have serious consequences for everyone in the industry." Back in 2018, William Connon had expressed fears that the vessel's design and construction were not being tested by an independent third party.
I mean, if it wasn't by an independent third party, there's no way in hell I would get down there. Thank you so much, Stacy. I don't say much, but always listen. Love your channel. Oh, thank you, Stacy. Thank you so much, my love. I do appreciate it. Thank you for that tip. I do appreciate it. I think maybe let me check and see if WVVA is back yet. WFLA rather. Here, let's see here. Let's see if they're back. I want videos. I want live. Nope. Everyone's taking a break, I guess, right now. There is a hey Boo just boarded ship. Wonder, did they find them? Jen, did they find them? Sorta, but they didn't find them, but they did find debris, and we have just a little under an hour. Sky News is back. Okay. Perfecto. Let's do this. Oh God.
scenario in all of this, and the worst case scenario portrayed by the discovery of these elements of the craft, is that there has been some kind of catastrophic failure, possibly an implosion. And it does beg the question, what about the 5 people on board? It is a very dark part of the ocean, a depth of 4,000 meters, and it was always going to be a hazardous journey, particularly at that level. The pressure is 380 bar, that's 160 times the pressure of your car tires. So there has been much discussion about the structure of this particular vessel and the structure required to withstand these kinds of pressures in that kind of environment. So the question to the Coast Guard will be essentially what's happened, and was that vessel able to withstand these kinds of pressures, and what are the implications indeed for those on board. This is a 3 p.m. local time news conference. Typically they have been held at 1 p.m. One imagines that there will be analysis, indeed there is ongoing analysis of the debris that has been found. One imagines there will have been contact with the families of the 5 on board with the latest information and with the latest conclusions as to what took place 4,000 meters down. This discovery was made by the Horizon Arctic vessel. That's a Canadian vessel, which for the first time today joined the search. It had US kit on board, a US supplied remotely operated vehicle, and that is what has found this debris. It is cutting edge technology which was introduced to the search operation for the first time today. It went down around about 7 hours ago, and it appears to have made its discovery within the space of just a couple of hours, tracing the path line of the Titan submersible, essentially from the surface of the sea above the Titanic straight down, and it's on the seabed that this debris was discovered.
Yeah, and James, as you rightly mentioned, the first time that these submersible vessels, the remotely operated ones, have been able to get down there and start looking around, because, of course, previous to this moment, the search has been on the surface for anything that may well give a clue as to where the Titan was. And it's worth remembering, of course, today as well is the moment when experts did think that those on board's oxygen levels may well have run out.
Yeah, that's right. That was always a deadline that they were looking at. The clock was ticking, essentially, for these people the second that they went underneath the surface of the Atlantic. Typically, assuming all goes well, it's something like an 8-hour trip in total, 2.5 hours down, some time for sightseeing, and then 2.5 hours back to the surface. When things went wrong, then clearly it was a race against time to locate this vessel and to retrieve it. Both very complicated matters, complicated by the existence of the appropriate technology and its location in relation to where it was needed. That's why it took 3 days for the appropriate kit to arrive on the scene. So, almost at the same time when that level of oxygen was running out, that theoretical timeline of oxygen was going to expire. But, you know, there was all sorts of variables associated with the situation on board this vessel, not just the 96-hour oxygen supply. There are issues around hypothermia. You know, had there been some kind of leak that compromised the structure of the vessel? Carbon dioxide. These 5 individuals breathing on board, the presence of carbon dioxide wouldn't have helped their particular situation. To that end, there was British help involved in the search operation. Lieutenant Commander Richard Cantoria, he's a man who's embedded with the US Navy, and they in turn lent him to this search operation. His speciality is in submarines. He's a submariner. He knows about things going wrong underneath the water and how to escape things that go wrong. But his speciality is centered on cutting-edge kit, nuclear submarines, which have the capacity to operate well at these kind of depths and to offer an escape route and solutions to problems encountered. That's the best-in-class technology, the nuclear sub. What they were dealing with here, not just the British submariner, but the people he was advising, the searchers, was a bolted together piece of kit controlled by a games console. And that's where the questions are now directed. Of course, should this thing have taken this trip in the first place? So all sorts of questions for the Coast Guard here surrounding the vessel which went down and appears to have come apart in the depths of the Atlantic Ocean. But of course, Kamali, at the heart of all of this is the human tragedy, the 5 individuals who appear to have perished in this particular instance. But that is all, of course, to be confirmed by a news conference, which will bring you live here from Boston's Harbourside in around about 50 minutes.
Certainly will. James, for now, thank you for that. Now, David Mearns is a rescue expert and knows some of the men on board the Titan. He spoke to my colleague Mark Austin just a little bit earlier.
A debris field implies a breakup of the submersible, and at that depth, because we know that they lost communications with it at about 3,300 meters. Titanic is just 3,750. So that really sort of indicates what is the worst case scenario, which is a catastrophic failure. Generally, that's an implosion. The only saving grace about that is that it would have been immediate, literally in milliseconds, and the men would have had no idea what was happening. That was my fear on Monday morning.
Was it?
When I got the call at 7 o'clock that Hamish was missing in a submersible, and then they told me where it was, the dive on Titanic. It was the first dive. That's a bad sign. That it was on ascent, that's a bad sign. And where it comes, we're lost. So my worst fears, as of Monday, have now been realized. And the only thing is we've gone through these 4 days of concern and worry and hope and praying that the outcome would be different. So, yeah, 2 friends of mine are gone. And I just learned that, you know, I don't know how many minutes ago.
Yeah. Look, and I'm really sorry. And if you are happy to carry on,
yeah,
because it is difficult, just tell us what Hamish and PH were like.
Well, they were totally different people from different backgrounds, different stations in life, if you will. One is being paid to be in that submersible, and one is paying a great deal of money to be there. But together, they're 2 guys' characters that would have got on like a house on fire. I'm sure they would have got on extremely well. As a matter of fact, they were most certainly put together in that dive because either Hamish requested PH or the organizers said, as Hamish being one of the key clients, we want PH to be with you because he will give you a spectacular overview of the wreck and explanation and the history. He knows it like the back of his hand, so you couldn't have a better guide. They were both very accomplished people. PH is almost a legend. You know, I don't think there's many people that have more dives on Titanic than he has. And I've known him longer, more professionally, Hamish more socially through the Explorers Club. And Hamish was just very charming, gregarious guy. I met him at a dinner, we were at a table, and by the end of it, we were planning an expedition together to actually climb Kilimanjaro with our families. What PH's job was, as a professional guide, he would sit there and talk people to the wreck, tell them where to go, explain things, and that was his role. So,
so when you say that,
but Hamish was a professional pilot, you know.
As well, was he?
Yeah. That was his business. He was a broker of private jets, and he was a pilot, a very accomplished person, and I didn't even know half of his business activities, and so he understood these risks as well. But I'm convinced. And this is what I really think we have to think now beyond what has happened, unfortunately. I'm convinced that both of those men got into that submersible on Sunday without any thought in their head that this could possibly happen.
Well, I was going to ask you about that because you said just a little earlier that it was what you most feared, and this sudden sort of catastrophic event Why did you fear that? What was it about the vessel, or what was it about the construction of the vessel that led you to fear that?
It's compared with all other deep diving subs, and for deep diving, we mean 4,000 meters and greater. That's ultra deep water. That's a different realm altogether than the kind of shallower submarines that there's a greater population of those now on private yachts and things. And this one was a completely unconventional build. All the other submersibles are a sphere of titanium, built very strong with small portholes of acrylic that you look through. But that strength, that sphere derives its strength from the spherical shape of it, you know? This was completely different. This was a tube with made out of carbon fiber with two titanium spheres on either end, one with a large porthole. And it was made in that shape so it could accommodate a larger number of passengers. Most manned submersibles are only two people, a pilot, a co-pilot, or an observer, or potentially three. The one that James Cameron used, only he could go in it, and you know, is a really small sphere. So this was completely different. Now that alone didn't give me cause for concern. More things I've heard since this accident, or since Monday, has been very worrying, but it was just the nature of it. When a sub is missing for 24 hours and they haven't found it on the surface, then you go to your worst fears, is that it's on the bottom and it's been brought to the bottom because of this catastrophic failure. Because generally, in a situation where you have a problem, you have an abort mechanism that allows you to release ballast weights and then rise to the surface yourself. If they couldn't do that, they were on the bottom. And in that situation, it's more likely that the scenario that's played out today is what happened.
Well, that was David Mearns, a search expert, speaking to my colleague Mark Austin earlier. David actually knew two of the men on board, Hamish Harding and Paul-Henri Nargiole, there with his expertise to exactly what may well have happened to the Titan. Well, joining us now is Salvatore Mercogliano. He's an expert on maritime transportation and an associate professor of history at Campbell University. Dr. Mercogliano, thank you very much for being with us this evening. I mean, what's your assessment of what you've heard in the past few hours? We're waiting for that news conference to begin at 8, but the reports that debris has been found by the wreck of the Titanic.
Well, the confirmation that this is parts of Titan obviously gives us a little bit more definitive nature of what happened to the wreck. The question is going to be the state of that debris. As we know, and we've heard from multiple sources, this submersible was designed to shed some of the outer skin and weight should it needed to. So it's really going to be the condition that that material is in and what else is found. Obviously, ROVs are in the search area close to Titanic, and what they are doing is either locating and identifying them on the bottom or bringing them to the surface so they can be positively identified.
And that debris area that the ROVs are looking at now, we understand that sort of the landing gear is there and part of the fairing at the back as well. What does that tell you about where the rest of this submersible could well be?
Well, it depends on the nature. As you're seeing there in that video, that landing gear can actually be ejected, can be actually shed. It's part of the weights that could be lost as a backup to try to bring the submersible to the surface. The question is, was the debris shed because of a catastrophic loss? In which case, that gear would be in a poor, a poorer state than what you're seeing here. I think I'm really waiting to hear what kind of state that debris is in. If it is perfect, in other words, it looks like it's been dropped, then that gives good hope that the internal vessel where the passengers are survived. If that debris is mangled, if it's damaged, that does not bode well for the passengers on board the submersible.
Yeah, perhaps we'll find that out during the news conference, which, as I say, begins at 8 p.m. this evening. Now, in light of what's happened for the past few days, and of course with this latest discovery, Dr. Mercogliano, much thought is turning to the safety of this particular vessel. We heard David Mearns talking about it there as to how this was a very unique craft. I mean, what's your assessment of this Titan submersible?
Well, this Titan submersible is really trying to revolutionize deep sea submergence. And many people have made the analogy that this is similar to what SpaceX, Blue Origin, and Virgin Galactic are trying to do. However, those three entities that are operating in space are regulated by the Federal Aviation Administration in the United States. Because of where this submersible was operating out in international waters, there was not really a regulatory agency that was overseeing this submersible, which meant that you didn't have those second set of eyes to really check and make sure that there's enough redundancy and protection put in. This was a new, novel way of diving down to that depth. And unfortunately, the sea is very unforgiving, and any sort of deformity or defect would expose itself when you put it under massive depth.
Without that kind of sort of regulatory oversight, I mean, this wasn't the first dive for the Titan. It's been doing this for a couple of years. Can we imagine that without the regulatory oversight, this thing can sort of degrade as it's being used? And, you know, is new material being added to it every time it goes for a dive, or is it just being sort of repeatedly used in the same way?
That is the big question. The American Bureau of Shipping, which is a regulatory agency, has a 237-page manual for their certification and their periodic reinspection of submersibles. The question is, what was OceanGate doing to do this type of regulatory inspections of it? The irony of all this is that Titanic, which sank in 1912, 2 years after its sinking, you have the Safety of Life at Sea Convention convened in London, which brought together all the major shipfaring nations, and they established parameters to ensure that ships had safe and mechanisms in place to ensure that they were safe to sail and operate. And the irony here is going to be, will Titan do this in the future for submersibles?
Yeah, there's more cruel ironies about the connection with the Titanic. Wendy Rush, who's of course the wife of Stockton Rush, is descended from people who were on the Titanic as well. So it just kind of tells you the sort of the historic significance of this place where these guys have taken this journey.
Yeah, again, you know, Titanic really draws in the attention. And one of the things I really want to clarify is that submersibles are used on a fairly daily basis. We see them used in the commercial sector quite a bit. And there was a letter from a few years ago written by the governing agency for submersibles that raised concerns about how Stockton was using this submersible. Because what is a big concern is that the consumer tourism industry would drive regulation for commercial industry, where submersibles are used in deep sea diving for oil platforms, for wells, for cable laying. Again, they have a lot of practical utility, but what we're seeing right now is that the consumer sector may drive what happens in the industrial sector.
So look, you've kind of skirted around it a little bit, but I think you're pushing on the idea here that after this, there needs to be some kind of oversight. There needs to be some sort of strict regulation. But I have heard other commentators, other experts in this field talking today, saying that perhaps that isn't necessary. You know, people want to be explorers. People still want to be adventurers. And if you over-regulate, you might sort of regulate out those who want to really push the boundaries of human exploration.
Well, I think in many ways, deep sea exploration right now is where the And today, we don't think twice about boarding an aircraft and flying at 30,000 feet above the air. There'll be a point where people will get into submersibles and not think a moment about being at 13,000 feet below the surface.
Oh.
But a lot of rules and regulations, unfortunately,
I was going to say, Stephanie K., welcome to the Justin for All family. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Please, everyone, welcome Stephanie to the fam.
Titan at this. I do think there is a question concerning the fact that this vessel was launched from a Canadian vessel out of a Canadian port. What was Canada's role in ensuring that Titan met the certain specifications necessary to ensure it was safe for operations?
Dr. Micogliano, just the last thought from you, if you can. Would you have got on this submersible?
I've sailed myself. I was a merchant mariner for 7 years, and I love being on the ocean. I love being on the sea, but the sea is very unforgiving. And when it sees a potential for a defect, it will act on it. I would have hesitation about it. I'm not going to lie. I think it would be a hesitation because it was a new novel design. But then again, it had done this for 2 years. And so I think there's a track record there. However, new technologies need to be inspected even more so than tried and true technologies.
You've got to make sure you stay on top of that sort of thing. Okay, Dr. Salvatore Mercogliano, really appreciate your time and your expertise this evening. Thanks for being with us. And just to remind you, of course, we're going to have that news conference at 8 o'clock this evening, so in about 35 minutes' time. Now, of course, the situation with the Titan
35 minutes from now
may well be found in that debris field is sure to feature in tomorrow morning's newspapers. We're going to have, as always, our extended press preview and news review from 10:30 with tonight's news and tomorrow's headlines. Joining us tonight,
Cricket, welcome to the Justin for All family. Welcome, my love. Thank you so much for joining. Everyone, please welcome Cricket to the family. Thank you. Yeah, we got about 35 minutes before the update. I'm going to check if WFLA is live. 1 second. Live. I don't see it. Let's see here. Give me 1 second. I'm trying to find if it's happens to be live. I'll play this for a second.
Accusations to Philip. Can you go away? Joe Biden knows the celebrations are over, and this is a country in crisis.
You don't want to be remembered this way. You always want to be remembered as something positive.
It is almost impossible to predict where these fires will go next. This gives you an idea of the strength of those winds, strong enough to bend and twist metal. I've reported from around the world and around the UK.
Do you regret the tweet, Gary?
There's no sign, publicly at least, of either side being willing to give ground. How do you reassure the public that all of these mistakes wouldn't be made again? I'm Greg Milam, and I'm Sky's Chief North of England correspondent.
Okay, so it's not ready. Here's a video, though, that I can show you. 64,000 people watching. What is it? Did I check my Venmo? I did not. I will check it. Maybe. Marie, I think was it from yesterday? Yes, my dear. Thank you so much. If it's okay, here is okay, it's coming back now. I was going to show you something else.
Interest rate rise today, but the 0.5% increase in base rates was a surprise to many.
Okay, that's not what I was wanting to show you. So here's the lost Titan submarine. We'll hide this until they come back. 3 p.m. for press conference. Yeah. We're just waiting on that. Here is
the CEO and founder of OceanGate. Let's take a look at Titan. So we're coming into the sub. This is the only toilet available on a deep diving submersible. Best seat in the house. You can look out the viewport. We put a privacy screen in, turn up the music, and it's very popular. We have our control screen here, our sonar screen here, and we can put any image we want in the back. We've taken a completely new approach to the sub design, and it's all run with this game controller and these touch screens. So if you want to go forward, you press forward. If you want to go back, you go back, turn left, turn right, go down, go up. And it's Bluetooth, so I can hand it to anybody. And it's meant for a 16-year-old to throw it around, and super durable. We keep a couple of spares on board just in case. This is the second year we've been out to the Titanic. We went out in 5 8-day missions. We did about 10 dives to the wreck site of the Titanic, and we did an extra dive on an undiscovered reef that we found. Completely privately funded operation, and we're funded by, we call mission specialists who help support the mission. So they take quite a bit of money to come and join us. Years ago, the Russians took tourists out to the Titanic, and it was just sort of a look and see thing. We really are focusing on the science around it. We want to document what.
That's crazy. Absolutely crazy.
Down. And it's important then that price setting and wage setting.
Okay, let's see if we got anything here. We're just waiting about 30. Okay, can y'all see that? Let me show you. Okay, there we go. Perfect.
The Titan, the relationship to 2 Titanic victims. Many of us have probably read about this along the way. We have now confirmed that Wendy Rush, the wife of Stockton Rush, which is the OceanGate CEO who's on board the Titan, is a descendant of Ida and Isidore Strauss, 2 of the wealthiest first-class passengers. Many of us will remember who died when the Titanic sank in 1912. Wendy Rush is the great-great-granddaughter of Ida and Isidore Strauss. He was a co-founder of the Macy's department store in New York, and Rush is descended from one of the couple's daughters, Minnie Strauss, who married Dr. Richard Weil, and their son's son, Dr. Richard Weil III, is Wendy Rush's father, again, the wife of Stockton Rush, that OceanGate CEO there. The Strausses, you'll remember, Brad, for many of us who have studied the Titanic history, and many of us more recently now, the Strausses are remembered because they chose to remain on the ship, on the Titanic together, as Ida Strauss refused to get on one of the few lifeboats as crews were trying to save women and children. Paul Kurzman, a great-grandson of them, has also told Fox News. James Cameron's version of the Titanic depicts their love story, we can all remember, featuring that scene of the elderly couple. They eventually hold hands as they laid in their bed and sank with the ship. But a remarkable connection there on board the Titan.
That's crazy. Some of the wealthiest people ever. And some of the wealthiest people here. It just shows you that no matter how much money you have, when you're at the mercy of the ocean, you're at the mercy of the ocean.
Charles Harding, I was very lucky and privileged to just get a chance
Here's the
to
guy
go to
on there.
space. So I've just got back from Texas, where we went up on a Blue Origin rocket. It was myself and 5 other astronauts as part of the Blue Origin program on their New Shepard rocket. So we went to above the Kármán line, which is defined as space. That's 100 kilometers above the Earth. And we got a chance to experience zero G and look down on the Earth. And the Earth is pretty attractive from that height.
I'm Giles Harding, I'm Hamish's son, and I'm just here to give my experience of what it was like down on the ground, seeing my dad go to space.
I want y'all to think about this. This little boy right here, he has lost his dad, most likely. That is what's really sad. The family members who have literally lost their loved ones because of this. This is right before, they went.
Some could say it was more stressful than my dad going to space. We were on a viewing dock several kilometers away from the launch, and 15 minutes before, everyone was silent. The atmosphere was so tense. everyone was so kind of excited, nervous energy, and as the rocket launched, it was just the most amazing moment. You see your dad going to space.
So having done space, that was quite an amazing experience. I do want to go back to space again in the future. I do think there's going to be another space station this decade. So before the end of the 2020s, I believe there will be Orbital Reef, which is the Blue Origin partnership space station. And I would love to go to that when it's eventually built. Meanwhile, my next adventure, and I seem to say yes to everything and worry about later how I'm going to do it, but the latest thing I've said yes to, somebody phoned me a couple of days ago and said, did I want to go to the Titanic in 10 days' time on a new sub they've got that will get to the Titanic. And of course I said yes, so I appear to be off to the Titanic in 10 days' time for
All right, so
a 4,000.
I think they are covering it back again. WFLA, we'll go to them. Just 1 second. Let's see, here's the live stream. All right, here, WFLA.
Admiral John Mauger, first Coast Guard District Commander. The two of them are, according to the release, going to be speaking to the media. We're moments away. Oh yeah, here we go. This provides us with some context, and this is a contribution from one of our audience members. Roby says #AJB Horizon Arctic is using the pelagic I think that's ROV. Pelagic. They have put that in their homepage about this operation. So right, I remember seeing that name as far as the ROV operator, so that becomes more clear for us now because so much has been made about Horizon Arctic's involvement in this discovery, and so that is believed to be the actual ROV that we're talking about here, and that's good clarity. I believe that what Roby is saying here is accurate, and if it's not, we'll correct in a little bit.
And I think you're right about OceanGate's homepage. I can't even open the site, so either they took it down or it's just getting inundated with traffic. We're not getting an error necessarily. I'm on my cell phone, so it's. Wish I had my laptop because then we could run some other tests to see what the deal is. But
so many comments. I'm misclicking on so many because they're scrolling so fast on my screen. Three fins, #AJB tail is not a part of the hull.
Right.
Apparently, including
so it's got to be separate pieces. There's just got to be a dividing line there that has the tail and then the hull and then the frame.
But then again, this is according to a group chat, WhatsApp, and look, we're going to get a more definitive answers coming up at the press conference here in the center of your screen at 3 o'clock Eastern. And let's not forget, in addition to what's expected, in addition to hearing from these two officials with the U.S. Coast Guard in Boston, what we are also expected to get is a Q&A in the aftermath of this. Media, of course, descending on Boston for this press conference and have been there all week, and they are going to be asking questions. So a lot of times we find out some of the most pertinent information in the Q&A afterwards because it's direct responses to direct questions. Josh has been in those press situations. I have as well, as far as just everyone asking questions at once. You try to get your question in, you do your best, and we're going to be carrying the entirety of the press conference from the beginning all the way through to the end. Right now, you can see they're doing the audio hookup so that every press agency that is there and represented is able to get clean audio. You're just seeing a little bit behind the scenes of what that process looks like. We are going to now relaunch our stream on Facebook Live. And to do that, we're going to be going into a 60-second countdown. We'll be right back here on WFLA Now.
WFLA Now will begin momentarily.
All right, guys, I'm going to switch it over to the Facebook one. 1 second. I have it ready. Here we go. This is the WFLA.
Breaking news on WFLA Now. Here's JB Buno.
About 20 minutes away from a 3 o'clock Eastern update, a Coast Guard press conference after a debris field found 2.5 miles down in the North Atlantic during the search for the missing Titan sub. The debris field found right next to the wreckage. You're looking here at a live signal from Boston, Massachusetts, as the Coast Guard press conference is about to get underway. JB here with you live in the WFLA Now Stream Center alongside WFLA anchor Josh Benson here on the right side of your screen. It's good to have Josh back on stream. We're saying hello once again to our social media audience on YouTube Live, elsewhere, other platforms too, but reintroducing our Facebook Live audience after, let me just quickly explain, Facebook Live doesn't let you go beyond 8 hours of streaming. So the previous live stream was
JB's got to be so tired right now.
That 8-hour cap. But we're back.
Can you imagine?
And, if anybody wants to tag anybody to let them know that this is the new feed, the new stream, the place where you can find the press conference itself, you can tag the individual below or tag them in the Facebook Live comment section. And as always, as people know here on WFLA Now, just use hashtag HeyJB. If you want to interact with us, you can also use hashtag HeyJosh, any of the on-screen hashtags that we have over the course of this live stream. So going here on the touchscreen, showing you here full screen, this is the staging area for the 3 o'clock press conference. But Josh, this comes after a disheartening report, a report that we hope to get more details on at 3 o'clock. Disheartening because we're hearing
20 more
about
minutes.
A debris field, potentially a landing frame and tail end being found.
We got an update too.
Okay.
Just a few minutes ago from CNN. The debris discovered within the search area, the missing Titanic submersible, has been assessed to be from the external body of the sub. That was according to a memo located on the ocean floor, roughly 500 meters off the bow of the Titanic, and was located around 8:55 a.m. Eastern.
Wow.
That's new in terms of location and external body.
Right there
just
with
getting
the
a little more
Titanic.
details about the debris field. So that's just coming in.
Wow.
Okay, so the submersible has been assessed to be from the external body of the sub. So
the debris, yes. According to a memo reviewed by CNN, the search for the crew capsule of the Titan continues. So it sounds like the frame and the tail and any other parts of the outside of the body, outside of that hull, it sounds like is what's happening. But now we have a location, 500 meters off the bow of the Titanic.
I need to, the Americans here are going to have to do a quick conversion of 500 meters to
feet. I've been having a hard time with that too. Feet and meters.
The United States, we just, we have different units of measurement here, and I don't know why, but that
would be
1,600 feet.
1,500, 1,600.
Pretty close.
That's 1,600 feet, yeah. I mean,
yeah.
What's a mile? 5,200 feet?
5,200 feet.
3
so
feet is a meter.
Approximately a quarter of a
but
mile.
That's not like right up against it. I mean, that's still a pretty good distance, right?
Quarter mile. Yeah, it's not right up on it.
No, I would think it would have been right
close
there.
enough.
That's really interesting. And here's
also,
another question I have.
Let's just state the obvious. I'm sorry, really quickly.
Yeah.
Let's just state the obvious here. They are now saying that they are reporting it's from the sub. So we have had the
confirmation
WhatsApp
that it's been
report,
found.
but this is apparently there's a memo being distributed that the external body of the sub is the source of this debris field found near the Titanic. I'm sorry.
A big question I have, my wife and I were talking about this, is the currents underwater. You hear about previous run-ins with the Titanic, literally like getting stuck on the wreckage because of the currents. But when you're that deep, 12,500 feet, are there currents down there?
There is.
I mean, I can't imagine that there's a lot, but maybe there is. I don't know, because there's nothing down there to control any water.
As I understand it, there is current, but
control any water. That doesn't make
fluctuates.
sense.
And this is based on the interviews that we have done here on stream, but it's not entirely still down there. But again, Mark Martin would be the best person to describe.
But that's interesting where the wreckage was found then. If that drifted, or if it was really, that's where the incident occurred that far away, they maybe never made it to the Titanic. They were close. You wonder, like, how does it all play out in the timeline?
That is 500 meters is about 540 yards. So we're talking about
5 football fields.
5 football fields.
Just far.
Roughly.
Far.
Maybe, yeah.
I mean, it's not that.
It's not right. They're not right up on one another.
So you wonder if they were coming into it because they lost communication, or they just drifted that far. If they lost communication and lost everything, or an incident happened on their way down, that the water just took them that far away from it. Or maybe that was their landing point. I don't know. Those are the questions that people are going to start asking.
Mark was sharing that you wouldn't necessarily drop right down on top of it. Is basically what he is saying.
Yep.
So
agreed.
We do have, as you can see here, there's the feed is going to be calibrated for multiple media organizations to be able to take advantage of. But let me make this clear, because this is part of the Stream Center's functionality. We do have the ability to go to a backup feed. We have there's going to, think about it. There's going to be cameras all in front of this podium. We have access to multiple cameras here. So if this one goes down, we go to another one. So you don't have to worry about, our loss of feed, even though, as I talk about it, we're now in bars, as they call it. And we'll get this shot back up eventually. But in the meantime, let's show you some of the video from the Royal Canadian Air Force. Let's start to introduce our audience interactively. You can use hashtag HeyJB, hashtag HeyJosh, and we'll try to get some comments going on the screen. But a lot of prayers are coming in, like from Ma Fast, hashtag HeyJB, my heart goes out to the families. It's incredibly heartbreaking. And we were talking about this earlier, Josh. If they have, in fact, confirmed that this is the sub.
Which they have.
Right, according to the memo, according to the CNN report.
Yep.
Then next of kin is part of the notification process, which might be why we have a 3 o'clock presser and not a 1 o'clock presser as well.
Right. And there's still no word on if they've found the people on board.
Right. The remains.
Yeah. They don't know where that is, and that's concerning. But, that's the biggest piece of the submersible, so that's got to be... You got to assume that's got to be close. Or maybe they're just not reporting on it yet. Because as you said, they're probably going through those steps.
Mark Martin says he will be returning at some point on stream. We will be hopefully getting Mark back to Mr. Mike Hawk joining us in our comment section. We'll do our very best, of course. He's been invited. And I'm looking.
You want me to read this update?
Of course. Yeah.
All right, so the debris discovered within the search area of the missing Titanic submersible has been assessed to be from the external body of the sub. That's according to a memo that was reviewed by CNN, and multiple other agencies are now reporting this. The search for the crew capsule, the Titan vessel, continues. That's what the memo states. The debris was located on the ocean floor, roughly 500 meters, about a third of a mile off the bow of the Titanic, and was found around 8:55 a.m. Eastern. It was discovered by a remotely operated vehicle that was searching the seafloor. That's according to the Coast Guard. And the discovery came at an urgent time for the search and rescue efforts. Experts say the sub and its 5 passengers would be reaching the limit of the sub's roughly 96 hours of life support, having disappeared on Sunday morning. So that's the very, very latest update. So still no word on the hull or the gentleman on board. Nobody has commented on that.
Yeah, and that
Still
might be,
missing
they
at this
might
point.
be waiting for, of course, 3 o'clock for that information to be distributed and published.
Okay.
What do you got?
A statement from OceanGate just came
Okay.
out saying OceanGate said Thursday that they believe the passengers of the Titanic-bound submersible have sadly been lost. That's according to the official company statement.
There you have it.
They're coming through and stating that now.
Okay, so 15 minutes or 12 minutes till we know something. OceanGate, let's go to their Twitter very quickly. They are tweeting. They should be tweeting. Let's see. It's maybe OceanGate Expeditions. Give me 1 second, y'all. June 15th. I don't see where they've said that yet. Okay, let's go back to JB here.
I'm just updating some information here, folks. I'm sure Josh is as well. We're kind of streaming thing before, and we're gonna again, we have a backup feed in the event that this one goes down for you know, just an abundance of media traffic.
They are saying
and a lot of online infrastructure, you know, load
that they
we're gonna do our
believe
very
they have
best to avoid.
passed.
But I'm pretty confident this satellite feed I think is coming through, and I think we have a backup sat feed is also, so we should be clear.
Huge audience on YouTube right now, too. 87,000 people tuning in. So great to have everybody with us as we get ready for this news.
It's to you live when it begins.
Okay. Well, son of a... 1 second. Let me switch back over.
Sent this down and knowing that these guys aren't coming up. The search is on to try to find them at this point, but clearly the debris field and parts of that submersible have been found.
And, you know.
So
everybody was hoping for that miracle ending.
OceanGate, which is who this sub is owned by, they are saying that they believe that the members, the people who were on board, have sadly perished in this terrible accident.
You know, that Hollywood ending.
Yeah, you just get Josh that that if you know, OceanGate is saying that the 5 passengers are believed to have been lost. Are they deceased as of Sunday? Because we've been talking about proof. Right, and they might, depending on the investigation.
Right.
So, and what they have actively found out in this operation. So, are we going to find out that this race against the clock wasn't exactly much of a race in the end, simply because, because of some tragic event that unfolded on Sunday, or did this extend into the last several days? Maybe
I was
we'll find
looking
that
for
out.
their
I'm sure
tweet.
that will be one of the questions asked during this press conference. I would like to, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I want to offer thoughts and prayers again, now that we have this news and it's getting widely distributed national and international breaking news that the OceanGate statement has been released and the 5 Titan sub passengers are believed to have been lost during this underwater expedition to see the RMS Titanic. And it's Hamish Harding, Shahzada Dawood, Suleiman Dawood, Paul Henry, Nargileh, and Stockton Rush, and Paul Henry is most commonly referred to by his friends as PH. And I'm sorry, apologies for any pronunciation difficulties there, but our thoughts and prayers are with the loved ones and family members who are living through their worst reality, their worst nightmare right now.
Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people are going to start wondering, what did it? What happened? Was
said in about 9 minutes' time. They usually start promptly, as you told us earlier. And what's going to be top of mind, really, for you guys there, asking the questions to those officials?
Well, top of that list will be the fate of the 5 people on board. I can tell you, Kamali, that in the past few minutes, OceanGate Expeditions, the company operating this Titan submersible, they have issued a statement indicating that those on board have sadly been lost, confirming the worst fears. Now, remember, a couple of hours ago, we brought news that this debris field included parts of the vessel, the rear cover and the landing frame. That was found by the Horizon Arctic Canadian vessel. It sent down a US remotely operated vehicle this morning. Cutting-edge technology, the kind of technology that this search operation has waited several days for. It was sent down something like 8 hours ago to the site, the seabed, the site of the Titanic. It appears it didn't take very long for it to make its discovery. The landing frame, as I say, and the rear cover, that's the message that we've had from our sources who are in touch with searchers on the surface of the ocean, 400 miles from the coast. What we're waiting for here on the Boston Harbor side is confirmation from the Coast Guard. Their news conference is due to begin in around about 5 minutes. And I'm just looking at messages coming through to my phone at the moment. Kamali, the owner of the missing Titanic submersible, we believe the crew, in quotes, have sadly been lost. So that appears to be confirmation from the company involved, the company who've been part of the coordination of this search, that the 5 on board have died. The question will be, and the question for the Coast Guard will be, what conclusions did they draw from the evidence available about what actually happened? Was there a catastrophic failure? Was there an implosion? That would be a scenario that they have contemplated, given the kind of environment 4,000 metres down in the Atlantic Ocean, the kind of pressure that is brought to bear at that level. 380 bar pressure, that's 160 times the pressure in your car tyres. So vessels that go to that depth need to be appropriately built. And of course, we have heard many questions, haven't we, about the suitability of this vessel to withstand that kind of oceanic environment. Those questions will continue, of course. But right now, at the very heart of this is the human tragedy, the individuals who were on board the Titan vessel, the founder of the company, OceanGate, an experienced pilot, a father and his son, a young son, 19 years old, a student at Strathclyde University in Glasgow. So there will be questions about the exact circumstances of what happened to this vessel. How much debris has been retrieved? We know the rear cover has been found, the landing frame. What else has been found? Has that been analysed? And what does that tell us about the circumstances of its demise? Questions for Rear Admiral John Modger, who will appear here in several minutes' time.
James, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but we have had a statement just come in from OceanGate, and I do want to read that out to our viewers as we're looking at the image of those 5 men who were on board the Titan. This statement reads as follows. We now believe that our CEO, Stockton Rush, Shahzada Daoud and his son Suleiman Daoud, Hamish Harding and Paul-Henri Nagiole have been sadly lost. The statement goes on to say these men were true explorers who shared a distinct spirit of adventure with a deep passion for exploring and protecting the world's oceans. Our hearts are with these 5 souls and every member of their families during this tragic time. We grieve the loss of life and joy they brought to everyone they knew. This is an extremely sad time for our dedicated employees who are exhausted and grieving deeply over this loss. The entire OceanGate family is deeply grateful for the countless men and women from multiple organisations of the international community who expedited wide-ranging resources and have worked so very hard on this mission. We appreciate their commitment to finding these 5 explorers and their days and nights of tireless work in support of our crew and their families. It then concludes, this is a very sad time for the entire explorer community and for each of the family members of those lost at sea. We respectfully ask that the privacy of these families be respected during this most painful time. Well, a statement there from OceanGate Incorporated, the owners of the Titan submersible, lost since Sunday afternoon, and now confirmation that the 5 men on board have died. James Matthews, our US correspondent, is at Boston Harbour awaiting a news conference from the Coast Guard. And there, James, confirmation from the owners of the Titan.
Yeah, confirmation that the 5 on board have perished. The questions will be about exactly what happened, of course. Kamali, it went underneath the surface of the Atlantic early on Sunday morning. And we saw tweets, didn't we, from Hamish Harding, the British man, one of the British men on board, about his adventure, saying that there had been a successful dive and that all had gone well in the first instance. It was 1 hour and 45 minutes into that journey that contact was lost. Now, it's my understanding that every 15 minutes that craft would typically ping ashore, a signal indicating that all was well. There came the moment where those pings stop, and that's what raised the alarm in the first instance, and that's what prompted the search. But of course, the difficulty throughout days of searching has been getting the appropriate kit on site. Kit that ultimately found debris, sophisticated technology, a Canadian ship allied with a US remotely operated vehicle. That was on site today, and within hours it managed to locate this debris field, following the path line of the Titan, essentially tracing the route it would have taken towards the wreck of the Titanic. It didn't take it very long to find the wreckage or the vessel that it was looking for. The problem has been...
They're walking up. Let's listen in live from Boston. Our coverage continues. We break down what we have learned and what we still do not know after the conclusion of the press conference by the U.S. Coast Guard.
Here we go, y'all.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today and over the past few days. This afternoon, Rear Admiral John Mauger will be providing an update on the most recent findings from ROV operations in search of the Titan submersible. He will provide a brief statement and provide the opportunity for questions after. Please limit your questions to one per outlet. Following the briefing, the Joint Information Center staff and I will be here to help you with any of your further needs. May I now please introduce Rear Admiral John Mauger.
This morning, an ROV, or remote operated vehicle, from the vessel Horizon Arctic discovered the tail cone of the Titan submersible approximately 1,600 feet from the bow of the Titanic on the seafloor. The ROV subsequently found additional debris. In consultation with experts from within the Unified Command, the debris is consistent with the catastrophic loss of the pressure chamber. Upon this determination, we immediately notified the families. On behalf of the United States Coast Guard and the entire Unified Command, I offer my deepest condolences to the families. I can only imagine what this has been like for them, and I hope that this discovery provides some solace during this difficult time. Additionally, we've been in close contact with the British and French Consuls General to ensure that they are fully apprised and that their concerns are being addressed. The outpouring of support in this highly complex search operation has been robust and immensely appreciated. We are grateful for the rapid mobilization of experts French Consuls General to ensure that they are fully apprised and that their concerns are being addressed. The outpouring of support in this highly complex search operation has been robust and immensely appreciated. We are grateful for the rapid mobilization of experts on the undersea search and rescue, and we thank all of the agencies and personnel for their role in the response. We're also incredibly grateful for the full spectrum of international assistance that's been provided. The ROVs will remain on scene and continue to gather information. Again, our most heartfelt condolences go out to the loved ones of the crew. We'll now take questions.
John, what other debris have you found? John, what other debris have you
Can
found?
you talk about the delay in reporting the vessel missing and what impact that had on the recovery? Search and recovery?
This was a incredibly complex case, and we're still working to develop the details for the timeline involved with this casualty and the response. And so we'll provide that.
James Matthews from Sky News. John, what other debris have you found? And have you found any trace of those who were on board?
So this is an incredibly complex operating environment on the seafloor, over 2 miles beneath the surface. And so the remote operating vehicle has been searching, and it is highly capable. And we've been able to classify parts of the pressure chamber for the Titan submersible. Let me refer to one of my undersea experts here, Mr. Paul Hankin, to talk about the nature of some of the debris.
Thank you, Admiral. So essentially we found 5 different major pieces of debris that told us that it was the remains of the Titan. The initial thing we found was the nose cone, which was outside of the pressure hull. We then found a large debris field. Within that large debris field, we found the front end bell of the pressure hull. That was the first indication that there was a catastrophic event. Shortly thereafter, we found a second smaller debris field. Within that debris field, we found the other end of the pressure hull, the aft end bell, which was basically comprised of the totality of that pressure vessel. We continue to map the debris field, and as the Admiral said, we will do the best we can to fully map out what's down there.
Admiral, is there...
It's a very difficult question to ask, but it will be an important one for the families, of course. What are the prospects of recovery of the bodies of the missing?
So the questions was related. I'm restating the question from the standpoint of sometimes it's hard to hear the question here. What are the prospects for recovering crew members? And so this is a incredibly unforgiving environment down there on the seafloor. And the debris is consistent with a catastrophic implosion of the vessel. And so we'll continue to work and continue to search the area down there, but I don't have an answer for prospects at this time.
Admiral, it's Tom Costello at NBC News. Is there any suggestion, any suggestion at all that the sub itself collided with the wreckage of Titanic, or that instead it might have imploded above the wreckage and then rained down nearby?
So the question was, is there any question as to whether or not the sub collided with the Titanic or whether it imploded above and debris field created from that? So the location of the Titan submersible was in an area that was approximately 1,600 feet from the wreck of the Titanic. I have an expert here that is familiar with that area and can talk about the debris field and what the debris field indicates in terms of where the casualty may have occurred.
Rear Admiral, really quickly, can you tell me when that...
Wait, let's get the expert voice, please. Hang on a second. The expert voice is coming up to answer the question.
Thank you, Admiral. So the question is, where does the wreck lie in relation to the Titanic? I didn't hear the Admiral's answer. I think 1,600 feet. Was that correct, Admiral?
Yep, you got it.
So that's off the bow of Titanic. It's in an area where there is not any debris of Titanic. It is a smooth bottom. To my knowledge and anything I've seen, there's no Titanic wreckage in that area. and again, 200 plus meters from the bow, and consistent with the location of last communication for an implosion in the water column. And the size of the debris field is consistent with that implosion in the water column.
Thanks. What would cause the implosion? In terms of the timing here, you say that this was a catastrophic implosion. And I know it's early on, but is it your estimation that this happened right at the moment when they lost contact, an hour and 45 minutes after their descent?
So the question was about the timing of the catastrophic implosion. Right now, it is too early to tell with that. We know that as we've been prosecuting this search over the course of the last 72 hours and beyond, that we've had sonar buoys in the water nearly continuously and have not detected any catastrophic events when those sonar buoys have been in the water. So,
Admiral, can you describe what happens from here, sir, in the next days and weeks in terms of finding any more debris? What happens from here?
So we will, the question was what happens from here, what's the next phase? And so right now, again, our thoughts are with the families and making sure that they have an understanding as best as we can provide of what happened and begin to find some closure. In terms of the large process, we're going to continue to investigate the site of the debris field. And then I know that there's also a lot of questions about how, why, and when did this happen. And so, you know, those are questions that we will collect as much information as we can on now, while the governments are meeting and discussing, you know, what an investigation of this nature of a casualty might look like. This is something that happened, I'll just remind everybody, this is something that happened in a remote portion of the ocean with people from, you know, several different countries around the world. And so it is a complex case to work through, but I'm confident that those questions will begin to get answered.
Will the Coast Guard lead the investigation, sir?
From the UK. Is there any suggestion that time factors, speed, anything could have prevented this or saved the 5 people on board, or is this quite simply a catastrophic?
The question was there any suggestion that time factors may have played a role or a consideration in the casualty here? And so the debris field is consistent with a catastrophic implosion of the vessel. Again, while we were prosecuting the search, we had listening devices in the water throughout and did not hear any signs of catastrophic failure from those. And so we're going to continue to investigate, or we're going to continue to document the information there and understand, based on all the information we have, the timeline.
What does it mean for the resources required for the investigation? Which ship will be pulling out and coming in?
So the question was, what are the resources required for the investigation, and which ships will be pulling out and staying in? And so it's too early for me to talk about an investigation. That's a decision that's going to be taken outside of the search and efforts that I was leading. But we do have a number of vessels. We have 9 vessels on the scene right now. We had medical personnel on scene. We had other technicians on scene. And so we will begin to demobilize personnel and vessels from the scene over the course of the next 24 hours. But we're going to continue remote operations on the seafloor And I don't have a timeline for when we would intend to stop remote operations on the seafloor at this point.
Admiral, as a result of this, do you think there should be changes in the way these are safety rated or inspected so that this won't happen again?
Yeah, the question was essentially about do you think that there should be changes in safety ratings or inspection for these standards? I know that there's a lot of questions about why, how, when this happened, and the members of the Unified Command, have those questions too as professionals and experts that work in this environment. And this is an incredibly difficult and dangerous environment to work in out there. But those questions about the regulations that apply and the standards, that's going to be, I'm sure, focus of future review. Right now, we're focused on documenting the scene and continuing the subfloor.
I know we don't know the timing here. We don't know the timing here, but there was the banging noises yesterday that redirected and redeployed the ROVs to this area. Is there anything conclusive in those noises, and did that redirection and then finding this debris field today all help?
So throughout the search efforts, we reacted to the information that we had available to us. And while we continue to send it off for deeper analysis, again, really complex operating environment for us to work in. Let me check with the experts, but there doesn't appear to be any connection between the noises and the location on the seafloor. Again, this was a catastrophic implosion of the vessel, which would have generated a significant broadband sound down there that the sonar buoys would have picked up.
Admiral, a lot of questions about who might be.
Admiral, you mentioned closure for the families. Admiral, can I just ask you about your comment regarding the families?
And also, were all of the assets involved moved as swiftly as possible to the area? And was any help turned away, as some lawmakers have criticized the government?
This was a incredibly complex operation, and we were able to mobilize an immense amount of gear to the site in just a really remarkable amount of time, given the fact that we started without any sort of vessel response plan for this or any sort of pre-stage resources. And so the equipment that was brought on site this morning that we were using was a pelagic ROV capable of operating at 6,000 meters, cameras, sonar, other articulating arms and resources on it. And it, we had to transport it here through C-17 aircraft. This is 2 aircraft that it took to get this up here. And so we've really had the right gear on site and worked as swiftly as possible to bring all of the capabilities that we had to bear to this search and rescue effort. And it was just a huge international and interagency effort to make this happen. So I'm really grateful for all of the responders that came out to support this and really search for the vessel. It is a difficult day for all of us, and it's especially difficult for the families, and our thoughts are with the families today. But this was an immense support, and we had the right gear on the bottom to find it. So thank you.
Admiral, you mentioned the Admiral.
Will you attempt to recover the bodies, can we ask you, though? The victims, will they be recovered?
Thank you so much, everyone, for attending this afternoon. There are no future planned press conferences. Updates will be shared to the...
Well, we've been listening there to Rear Admiral John Marga, the 1st Coast Guard District Commander, bringing the news that the Titan submersible debris field that was found earlier is in fact the submersible, and that it was destroyed in what was consistent with an implosion. The debris field found some 1,600 feet from the bow of the Titanic. When asked whether or not the bodies of those who were on board, those 5 individuals, would be recovered, he was unable to say because of the nature of the implosion of that Titan submersible. Let's bring in our international correspondent, John Sparks, who's been following this for us from St. John's in
There may not
Newfoundland,
be anything left.
This voyage began. And John, we've had the details there from John Malga, the details, I guess, that families feared hearing, but which perhaps they had expected.
Most likely in the beginning.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, a lot of information that was given in that press conference, and we can go over it quickly in a second. But he said, look, difficult day for all of us, and an especially difficult day for members of the family. He was absolutely categorical. That vessel has been lost. It suffered a catastrophic rupture, a catastrophic implosion. The 5 men on board have lost their lives. They are dead. It was categorical, sad, but categorical. Let's go through some of the details. They put an ROV, one of these remote deep sea vehicles. They put it in the sea this morning from a ship called the Horizon Arctic. I understand that ROV was supplied by the US Navy. It gave them the ability to get right to the bottom of the ocean floor. It gave them eyes on the bottom of the ocean floor, and that is the first time they've had that skill, they've had that ability, and I think that's what's generated the news and their findings. With that ROV, they were able to find this. They found a field of debris. It started with a nose cone, the nose cone of the submersible, the Titan. They then found a debris field, the first debris field, past the nose cone. They then found the front of the pressure hull. I assume that is the main part of the structure. They then found a second debris field, and then they found more debris. And they found it 1,600 feet from the wreck. That is relatively close to the wreck of the Titanic. Off the bow, said one of the experts, it was in a smooth part of the ocean floor. There was no other debris from the Titanic there. It suggests they would have had a clear look at it. They are absolutely certain of what they were looking at. As you said, they were asked about the bodies. What are you going to do about the bodies? And they weren't able to give an answer. That will certainly be a question that will be asked again. Friends and family of those who have been lost, they will want to know as well. But it is an incredibly complex operation.
I mean, they could have actually seen remains, or parts of remains down there. So that's it, guys. If you guys want to continue the coverage, you can go to Sky News right here. But they probably will not bring, I don't know if they'll bring the bodies up or not. It's probably a very delicate process. I don't know if it will be done or not. I will be back later this evening. It is 3:22 p.m. on the East Coast of the United States here. I will probably be back around 6 to 7 p.m. Either on this channel or my other channel, Clutch Them Pearls. We'll be talking about some true crime and stuff, cases that are currently going on, new cases as well. Really, really horrific craziness going on right now. Thank you all so much for being here for the last 3.5 hours with me. I appreciate it. Please do me a favor, hit that thumbs up button. Thank you to the mods and members and everyone who was here with me Prayers go out to the loved ones of the victims. Very tragic, but this is probably, unfortunately, how it was expected to end. It's a dangerous environment. So prayers go out to them. Thank you all for joining me. I appreciate you. God bless each and every one of you. We'll see you on the next one.